The town of Farmington. Respecting history, planning the future.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Farmington Town Council meeting and ask you to join us with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first thing on our agenda tonight is the public hearing.
A public hearing will be held on Tuesday, February 12th at 7:05 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers to amend Chapter 118 Housing Code of the Town of Farmington Town Code dated at Farmington Connect this first day of February 2019, happening at evening time.
Thank you. We'll first have an explanation of the code. Nancy Parent will join us, and then I'll have public comment.
Okay. How do I open it? Our IT specialist.
And I just click
That, perfect. So I'm going to just give a very brief update of the housing code. Our housing code, it's chapter 118, and the purpose is to ensure safe and sanitary and decent housing conditions within the town. And just for a little bit of background, a few years ago, we formed a committee basically to kind of deal with some of the hoarding issues and some of the houses that we were concerned about as a way to share information and kind of join forces to work together between ourselves, Public Works, and the Health Department. So we kind of shared some ideas and actually started looking over the code and decided that we wanted to suggest some changes. From those meetings, we actually have also set up a task force to actually share information, steps, and progress made with a few of the houses that we're working with and the senior citizens or disabled residents. So from that, not only do we have these changes, but we have a whole system in place now to deal with some of the people that we may be most concerned about. And then we also received some complaints regarding grass and debris on personal property. So that kind of joined forces together, and Kat and I started working together to look at that housing code. So an overview of the few changes. One is we actually updated the oversight or enforcement areas within the code. For instance, most of the code suggested that the Farmington Valley Health District was responsible for everything, even building safety, when in turn they actually weren't the ones who could deem a building unsafe. So we actually went through and looked and put the appropriate agencies. We added language to allow for rentals. There was never any language in it before about rentals. And then we updated it to match state regulations because some of it was outdated. And then the last thing is we added the additional language, which Kat will assist us with. So with the oversight, as you can see, we added the appropriate agencies as needed. So we added the Connecticut Public Health Code, the Farmington Valley Health District, and the Public Works Department as appropriate. And then the language for rentals, we started listing rental dwellings as one of the options. And then just to update to the state regulations, something as simple as 120 to 115, just to match what the regulations were because it was actually out of code. And then that last sentence is the gutters to be maintained to shed water away from the building. That was just a new code issue. And then Kat.
As Nancy mentioned, updates to the housing code also include the addition of Article 10, property conditions. Town does not currently have an ordinance related to overgrowth and debris, and with the addition of this article, the town now has a means of enforcement in response to complaints. This article includes standards for the growth and maintenance of all landscaping on any premise, including but not limited to shrubs, hedges, weeds, trees, grass, and plants. No owner or occupant of any premise shall permit grass, weeds, or vegetation to grow to a height greater than 1 foot. And shrubs, hedges, and/or trees shall not block or interfere with any public sidewalk, public or private street or right-of-way, or obstruct the sighting of road signs or sight lines, and shall not obstruct utility lines or other cables to and around the premise. The article also states that an owner or occupant of any premise shall be responsible for maintaining the property in a clean and sanitary condition, free from garbage, rubbish, or any other refuse, and limit the accumulation of debris throughout the property. Debris is defined as a material that is incapable of immediately performing the function for which it was designed, including but not limited to abandoned, discarded, or unused objects, junk comprised of equipment such as parts of automobiles, furniture, appliances, cans, boxes, scrap metal, tires, batteries, containers, or garbage. For enforcement, the town's enforcement officer or agent is authorized to issue an order to a violator of these regulations. If such violation has not been remedied within 10 days of the date of issuance, the enforcement officer shall issue a citation. The owner, I did this one. We also updated Article 11, which is miscellaneous provisions. These provisions are for the entire article, and some of these updates included updating the language for penalties. Citations are not more than $100, and these are each day's failure to comply shall constitute a separate violation. We also removed language that said upon conviction from the previous version of this article. Lastly, we added conflicts with other laws. In the section, we just added Connecticut Public Health Code in addition to the town of Farmington. That's it.
Thank you. And at this time, I'd ask for any public comment. Okay, hearing none, I'll close the hearing at 7:06 or 7:07. Next, we have presentations and recognitions, and I invite our legislators to please come up to the podium. Mike D'Amico and Derek Slapp. Thank you for coming tonight. No snow, no ice out there tonight.
2 years ago, my first one after getting elected, it was on Valentine's Day.
Oh.
So my wife was just happy that today. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And we do this every February, ask you to come and just talk to us about what's going on at the legislature. And we know that obviously your budget is a ways off and you're just starting to go through your bills. But I open it up for questions from the council and just have you maybe tell us a little bit about anything you'd like that's going on that might have something to do with Farmington or where you think things at this point. I know it's not till the 20th that the governor actually puts forth his budget, but there are certainly some things that have been in the paper and going around at this point, so you may have some insights for us. So.
Well, I'll defer to
Sure.
Mr. Farmington.
Well, aren't you nice? Well,
Jump in.
as you point out, Nancy, the governor's going to deliver his budget address a week from today on the 20th, and then we'll have a clearer picture of what direction he wants to go in. I think that, well, I think the mood at the Capitol is better than it has been in the last several years. I think just by his attitude and his openness towards the legislators and everyone, I think the governor has shown that he's willing to work with people. That he's it's not my way is the only way. And I think you're gonna see a lot more cooperation, this year, and hopefully in succeeding years. I think that for the most part, it remains to be seen, what's going to be offered. Obviously, we have a significant, fiscal issues that have to be dealt with. I think everyone is looking to the governor and his staff to come up with some creative ways to try to get us in a better position. And like I said, I think we have to wait until next week and find out what he's actually going to propose. One of the things that got some attention within the last couple of days is the whole idea of bonding. And, the governor, I guess he made the statement that we're going to go on a bonding diet, which, okay, that's good, I guess. But, it remains to be seen how cooperative the legislators are going to be with that whole idea of a bonding diet. Because bonding is how we pay for projects, good projects, worthwhile projects throughout the state, for Farmington and all the other, towns in the state of Connecticut. So it's all well and good to say we need to pare this down a little bit, but, it's, this is the way that the governor and the legislature, puts forward economic development initiatives, school, reimbursement initiatives. It's to say you're going to go on a diet sounds good, but there are still demands and needs out there. So, and again, the battle is going to be how do you balance those two things? And that's what will happen in the next couple of years, next couple of months, next several months. We'll try to figure out how to create the balance between the needs that we have and the ability to pay for those needs. I think I'm going to stop and let Derek take it from there.
Thanks again for inviting me. I'll pick up on what Representative D'Amico said in terms of, I do think there is a optimism at the Capitol. I think people are very realistic about the budget challenges ahead. But it was time for a change, different style, different approach, more collaborative. That's great. As you know, we had a bipartisan budget 2 years ago, and then we came in, Republicans, Democrats together, and made adjustments to that budget last year. I hope that paradigm continues and that can be the new normal at the Capitol. I mean, that's going to require, I think, two significant things. First is that it's incumbent upon the governor, and so far I think he's done a good job with this in terms of being collaborative and being solicitous of Republican ideas as well, because there's both parties really, if you think about it, contributed to the mess that we're in now by not for 60 years not putting anything away for pensions and retiree health care. So it's my feeling that both parties should work together to resolve it. So I think if we're going to have that, I think it's incumbent first upon Democrats who have majorities, and as you know, both the chambers, and the governor to approach the session and the budget with humility and graciousness, and saying, look, really being sincere and saying, let's both sides work together to try to get some solutions. And then and I hope our friends on the other side of the aisle, and I'm optimistic that there's going to be a lot of tough choices, tough decisions in the budget, that they'll stay at the table and govern with us. So, but everybody's right now, I think saying the right things and looking forward to working together. The governor has made mention to many people I know, including CCM, about holding towns harmless, which is a great. I'm sure I don't have to tell you, is a great. It's something that's great to hear, right? I mean, we'll know more on the 20th, but what a difference from the previous year or two, when, as you know, we were here talking about putting the teachers' pension liability onto the towns. I don't think we're going to start next week having to play defense on that. So that's great. We are obviously not going to accept massive cuts to ECS and the plans that we had to push back on and fight back on right over the previous 2 years. So I hope that we're starting in a much better place in terms of municipal aid, and I know that's obviously something that you all are very, all of us are very concerned about. So we had a similar conversation with school board members, what was it, 2 weeks ago maybe? Yeah. And we talked about, ECS funding, and I know that's not the only grant that you're concerned about. In fact, in West Hartford, as an example, it's the biggest grant, but here you have pilot and you have other grants, I get it, that are also really of concern. So you'll know the timing. I mean, so the governor will present his budget next week, and then we'll want to really work closely with you all as the legislature prepares its response, right? And it'll be a couple months, as the Appropriations and Finance Committee, and there's lots of public hearings, but we'll want to really make sure that we, and I know you'll let us know, but I want to make sure that we really set some time aside to have some very robust discussions about what you like, what you don't like, and so we can then go to the leaders of the Appropriations and Finance Committee and go to the leaders in the Senate and the House, right, and try to make sure that the legislative response is something that we're all comfortable with. And then, as you know, that'll come out in, I think, the end of April, and then they essentially spend, hopefully it's just May and the first week of June, hopefully just May, but coming up, with the compromise between the executive and legislative branches, and hopefully we'll be done on time. I think we all don't want to see a repeat of when it went all the way to Halloween, which was 2 years ago. So, with that, I mean, I don't want to filibuster, so I'm happy to, answer, I know both of us answer any questions, but just to kind of recap, I mean, we're going to be, I don't want to speak for you, but I know aid to cities and towns are really, really important. The governor joked 2 years ago that, that he finally found a way to bring Democrats and Republicans together, and that was right in opposition of the budget and the executive order that was just unacceptable to all of us. So I don't think we'll be in that position, but if we need to, stand up against a bad budget, we'll do it. So with that, any questions or just any more insight we could offer, happy to do it.
I think, I just want to start one thing and then I'll go to the council, but when we see all that about bonding, one of the issues, we, as you both well know, we have a school coming up that we're hopeful that will get out to the public and be moving forward this year. So with that in mind, the last time we did this, there was between 26-28% reimbursement, and that's why we tried to move that process along to get that reimbursement. It didn't work. So we're in that position now where we want to move it forward. We are, I think personally, I'm a little nervous and wondering what's going to happen with our bonding this year. And I know that's one of the things that's, as you say, he wants to have a diet on it. And, we understand that with, I don't know, what is it, over a $2 billion deficit, things have to happen. But what can you talk to us a little bit about that, the bonding, and if in fact there are going to be, there's going to be less bonding maybe across the state, but Farmington, how we can be assured that you're going to be there to represent our needs, as well as, it seems like the cities are taking on a really role, a front seat role, and we want to make sure Farmington's still part of that.
I'll just piggyback on something that Derek mentioned. Yes, a couple of years ago, under Governor Malloy, he did manage to bring Democrats and Republicans together. Because people were quite upset with the fact that costs were going to be were proposed to be shifted onto the towns and the cities, and there was significant pushback, and we ended up with a budget after long, acrimonious debate. We ended up with a budget that was much more favorable to the towns and the cities than was originally proposed. So I think you're going to see the same thing here with regards to the budget, in general, but then bonding specifically. The towns, look, the towns have always relied on reimbursement money from the state when they do school projects. A significant, I don't know the figures, but certainly an overwhelming amount of the bonding money goes towards school reimbursement, school projects. Every town has the need to build schools at some point. If not this year, then next year or 5 years from now. So the governor might want to have a diet, but the legislators who represent all the different towns are not going to be quite as ready and willing to go on a diet, because they have needs, and whatever money doesn't come through the bonding process is naturally going to fall upon the municipalities. So I guess I would say, I don't have a crystal ball, neither does Derek, but we do have past history, past, experience to fall back on. In the past several years, there's been all kinds of talk about how, the towns are going to have to pick up more of the slack, and the towns and the cities, the legislators who represent those towns and cities push back against the governor and say, no, it's a partnership, and so I guess I would say that going forward we have to be cautious, we have to be careful, but I think we should all just take a deep breath and be comforted by the fact that in the past things were, I don't want to say threatened, but things looked kind of bleak, but we worked it all out. And hopefully we'll be able to, going forward this year and in succeeding years, work it all out as we've done in the past. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but between Derek and I and our two former colleagues, Senator Bai and Senator Giarratana, we went there and went to leadership, the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate, and said, no, we don't want this to happen to Farmington. You can't let this happen to our town. And we were generally pretty successful. So if the past is any indication of what's going to happen, I think we're going to be okay. But we have to be, we have to be alert, we have to be vigilant. And certainly all of you are going to be vigilant, and you will be calling us, and you will be emailing us, and that's a good thing. Anyhow, that's my take on it.
I guess I would add that I think that, that we have to balance and what's obviously in the best interest of the state of Connecticut, right, with our towns, of course, and that and so I guess I would say that the most of us, I think, would probably agree that we do need to be more prudent with our bonding. That our state charge card is pretty well maxed out, and by doing that will also not only mean that our generations ahead of us won't be paying for the debt for a long, long time, but also it'll help us balance the budget, which ties into what we were just talking about earlier, because we'll be paying less in debt. So I know the governor's talking about tens and tens of millions of dollars that we would save, right, in bond payments, and that means that there's money to help keep towns whole. So I think that we would all probably agree that we should be prudent on the bond. And some type of diet. I don't think that's mutually exclusive with helping to find resources and bonding for high school in Farmington. Does it make it more of a challenge? Maybe, but I think that we need to just, and certainly I know we're committed to doing whatever we can, but I think we'll all need to work together, and I think we need to find partners, so it's not just Farmington. So if we look at CCM, you look at cost, right? So these are, who else has an interest, right, in making sure that we get these important projects built? Because if it's just Farmington, it's going to be more difficult, right? As opposed to if what are other communities across the state, right? They're in a similar position, and then we start building critical mass, and we start, right, getting a coalition together to say, well, wait a minute, a diet is fine, but we still need to invest in education in this state. So I would love to talk with all of you and to maybe have a strategy session and try to identify partners, because I think that'll make us have a much stronger position at the Capitol.
Thank you. And I guess I'll just say the last thing is I appreciate the fact that we need to look at what we're spending and not, max out the card, which is already beyond max.
Yep.
But there should be a fairness with Farmington, and that's all I ask.
Yes, agreed.
We continue to pay attention to that. We've already got lots of emails about the school project and looking at other towns that have such beautiful high schools that some of the towns have a much higher percentage, and half of it's paid for by the state. So we have to be mindful of that too. But as long as there's that, Farmington still has a place, and we should be doing so.
Absolutely. But a strategy of looking at what are the other towns that are a few years away or right now wanting to, right, have projects move forward. All of a sudden, we have identified legislative allies. right? And people who can come up to the Capitol. So it's not just Farmington students, and now we have students from all across the state, right? Now we're starting to, build kind of a real kind of grassroots coalition. I think that's what's going to have a big impact.
Other people have questions or comments? Go ahead, Patty.
Sure. I probably have more, but I'll start with the one that I'm known for, which is the environmental issues. So I've seen a number of bills are being proposed this year, which Mike has the liberty of getting to review and figure out what's there. A number of plastic bag bans. I'm also the chair of the Green Efforts Committee in Farmington, and this year our goal, what we're focusing on as a committee is waste reduction. And one of the things we've toyed with is, well, is it the time for the town to do we want to start looking into what the impacts are to the town for a plastic bag ban, or is the state actually going to take this for us? And because what I'm hearing on the business side of my legal life is that this would be far easier to implement on a statewide basis, because businesses don't want to have to figure out what to do in one town versus another town versus another town. And there's a lot of bags that, and I've talked with others about, it's the takeout business, it's not just the grocery stores that this starts to impact. So do you have any thoughts about where that's going? And I'm going to piggyback on that with a concept on plastic straws. I know that's been posed as well. My understanding is there's some concerns on the ADA side in terms of what the impact is of banning plastic straws.
Yeah. Well, so I will just say, 2 years ago, there were a couple of plastic bag bills, banning plastic bags, taxing plastic bags, reducing plastic bags, and it had public hearings, and there was a lot of resistance. It's amazing to me that only 2 years later, we seem to be on the other side of the argument. I think there's a groundswell within the state of Connecticut, from what I can see, to reduce, if not eliminate, these single-use plastic bags. So 2 years ago, it was hard to get anybody to. I shouldn't say it was hard, but it was a much more difficult thing, and that's why we as a legislature didn't go anywhere with that. But this year, I think in just 2 short years, there's been a lot more public education, public awareness, and quite frankly, a demand to do something about this. So I think that you will see something coming out of, you'll certainly see something coming out of the Environment Committee. Now, whether it gets all the way through the process and gets approved by the legislature and gets signed by the governor, again, I don't have a crystal ball, but you're going to see something from the Environment Committee for the reason that you said. It's going to be much easier, and I think a much wiser way to do things on a statewide level than have all these individual towns having different ordinances and different ways of doing it. But I'll tell you, I mean, the towns are the ones who got us to this point. I mean, there's several towns in Connecticut who took the lead on this and have convinced many legislators, hey, look, if it works in this town, it works in that town, it works in that town, it could work for the whole state, so let's go. And so you're going to see something, in this year for sure. The straws, I'm sensitive to that. That is a problem. People with disabilities, so we can do a carve out. I mean, as far as there are all sorts of ways to do this. But if we need to make an exception on the plastic straws for people for whom this is going to be a real problem, depending on their physical limitations, we'll make the accommodations. So stay tuned. It's gonna happen. I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm pretty confident it's going to happen. So, and I'm glad that Farmington's with it too. That's
We're
great.
trying.
Good. Okay.
I was at Big Y the other day, and
They've instituted a ban in the store.
that's right. They're getting rid of all their plastic bags. Big Y, and so I think the pressure to. I'm just going to call you Mike, but
Please.
to Mike's point, that the pressure that some of the towns have put on, and just public pressure. I mean, it's kind of the way that it's supposed to work in many cases, and then a private business decided that this is what we want to do, and so I think public sentiment is moving. I think, and you might correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but there is, I've heard this from several of the advocates, that there is an agreement in principle with, from some of the environmental groups and the grocery stores on a ban. The question now is the width of the plastic, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know, we're getting really into the weeds here, but I mean, that's a great, so when the Plastic Association, what's the official title?
Oh, man.
Whatever it is, the Plastic Association, they begin the legislative session saying, we're okay with a ban, right? We just are going to negotiate that's where they start. That is amazing, right? If you think about it, just in a span of a couple years.
Yeah.
So I agree with Mike, something will get done. I am concerned about the straws in terms of banning them and making it, you know, for folks with disabilities to say, well, you can still have them, but you have to ask a manager, and then it's going to take 15 minutes for the manager to go and find them in the back room. I don't think that's fair for folks with disability. I don't think we should or can do that to folks with disabilities. So I don't know how we get around that, but, you know, that to me seems burdensome, especially to them. So I don't know where that's going to go, but I think the bags there's much more momentum on right now.
I have one other environment question. Is this any plans to deal with the fracking waste moratorium? Because I am hearing people telling me, you're the chair of the Green Efforts Committee, when are you going to start banning it? And frankly, I think that's another issue that's better addressed by the state.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think it's somewhere between 40 and 50 towns in Connecticut already have, you know, instituted a fracking waste ban. Connecticut has a moratorium, but again, I think it's been the last 2 or 3 years in a row, there's been legislation introduced, you know, for a statewide ban on fracking and fracking byproducts. Again, I think this year you will see something. I mean, actually the House passed something last year. The years all meld together for me. It was either last year or 2 years ago. We got it through the House, and it got jammed up in the Senate, and you know, couldn't get through the Senate. This year's bill is a Senate bill, so it will start in the Senate, and I think we'll be able to get it done on a statewide basis this year. Again, don't hold me to it, but I think it's gonna, you know, the momentum is building. So.
Can I mention one more thing about public health? It's not specifically environment, but it's the epidemic of vaping that.
That was on my list too.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but we talked about this at the Board of Education as well. So I've submitted with legislative colleagues 4 bills, and they're kind of being now all merged into, there's going to be a couple ones, but essentially we have a 4-pronged strategy to deal with it. And I think there's tons of momentum for a strong bill. I think we're going to see a bipartisan support for it. I think everybody gets that this is a huge problem in our, not just in our high schools, but in our middle schools, right? And gosh, I mean, sometimes even, you know, earlier. So, I mean, we're looking at, there are bills to ban the flavors. I ultimately am skeptical that we'll be able to outright ban them. Maybe the federal government's looking at that, but one potential compromise. I've had 2 forums on this in the 2 different high schools in West Hartford, and we'd be happy actually. Maybe we should do one in Farmington if you all want it. We could work together on that. But is to get the flavors at least out of the convenience stores, that's where a lot of our teens access them, and have them just in the adult only shop, so that like the vaping shop. So, you know, the vaping stores love it, right? So, of course, but that's something we could look at, tightening up online sales, deliveries. So, you know, we're not having the minors get the deliveries and before mom and dad get home, that type of thing. You know, those are 2. T21, you may have heard about that as far as raising the age of all of this to 21, because about 90% of folks who begin smoking do it, you know, around 18, 19 years old. So we do think we can delay or prevent people from starting and help get it out of our high schools, because we know, I mean, that their teens get it from online, they get it from convenience stores, and they get it from older siblings. So if we can push that right out. And then the last part of it, and there was a public hearing just on this today, and that's looking at our tax policy towards e-cigarettes. And we don't want to make it so cost prohibitive, because for certain adults it is a good off-ramp to from smoking the traditional, the combustible kind. So right, we want to still, you know, have that as certainly an option, but we know that teens are very price sensitive, and that's something that we'll be looking at too. And I hope that if there is some type of, because right now there's only a sales tax, that's it. There's not there's no tobacco tax or whatever, right? No, there's no cigarette tax on those. I do hope that if we do something like that in terms of revenue, that is spent on public education and awareness, et cetera, and not swept by the legislature. And I wouldn't trust the legislature either. So I think we need to try to look at it, if that's going to happen, that we really make that very difficult for the legislature and the governor to get their hands on it. So anyway, I don't know if we want to talk more about it, but I just wanted to give you kind of a sense of where it is, and I know that impacts all of our teens and kids. So, yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Edward.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service, and thank you for both of you always standing up for the interests of Farmington, and I have the confidence that both of you will continue to do that. My question is on another bill that's been introduced, and I know a lot of bills get introduced and some never make it out of committee. But there is a regionalization bill that's been introduced, and I think it says would be affecting towns with either less than 2,000 students or less than 40,000 population. And so could you speak a little bit to that in terms of your thoughts on that issue?
Yeah, sure. I think that this bill is I don't know the motive. I haven't spoken with the sponsors. I gather it's probably to start a conversation. At least that's what I've heard. I don't support it. I think that there are many opportunities for towns to share services, and we've seen that there's animal shelters that I know we have actually a bill in to help regionalize that in a way. There's West Hartford and Bloomfield have a shared health district. I mean, there's many examples of that, and where we can get some savings. And we should keep looking for those, and sometimes it's great to use the carrot, sometimes it's great to use the stick, I get it, but, and we're all looking to make government at every level more affordable. I think forcing regionalization when it comes to schools, it's not a good strategy, it's not going to be successful, and it's not fair to the town. So I don't see it going anywhere.
I agree with everything he just said, particularly the first part. I think it's a conversation starter, that bill, but as a practical matter, I would be really skeptical about it actually making it through the process. But it obviously has prompted a discussion and will continue to do so. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Thank you both for coming tonight. Well, first of all, I'm really glad to hear that some of the things you mentioned at the beginning about pension liabilities not being shifted to the towns, and a lot of those things that were discussion points years ago aren't this year. That's always hard to do a budget when you don't know kind of where some of those moving targets are.
Right.
So I think that's very promising. I like the flavor of it when you moved to capital. That all sounds very promising. Everyone's saying the right things.
Right.
I get to kind of follow up both on, I guess, what Ed was asking as well as some things Nancy was saying. When it comes to our ECS funds, I know we're in the $700,000 to $800,000 range. I know West Hartford's like 20 million, Hartford's 200 million. I'm glad to hear you guys saying we're going to hold the line and keep that at least where we are and not go below that. I guess just one thing that I would like to see, and hopefully you guys can help us achieve, is when it comes to this bonding, what's the term the governor used, bonding haircut or
Diet, he's said, yeah. That metaphor works too.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
And it's, I know it's, maybe we should scale it back a little bit, fair assumption. One of the points Nancy made is we had a really long public comment section a couple meetings ago, joint with the Board of Ed, and people are coming saying, hey, this town, Middletown, not as wealthy as Farmington, but they built a beautiful high school. A lot of other municipalities built these great high schools. People don't realize their reimbursement rates are 50, 60, sometimes 80%. The states are building these schools for these towns.
Yeah.
So maybe as a discussion point, the towns and other legislatures who represent these towns can say, hey, if we're going to scale bonding back, maybe we can do it. And not that those municipalities shouldn't get a little bit more than we get. I'm not suggesting that, but maybe it's just gotten so disproportional. We can use this as an opportunity to maybe balance it a little bit and hold Farmington's 20 to 30% as close to that as possible as we're talking about, you know, this big new school. I guess the other question, I don't know if it's more of a question or concern, but kind of follow up on what Ed was saying is, with this talk on regionalization and, you know, if it's a conversation starter, if it's something that is going to ever happen, I think the concern I have is we're talking about investing tens of millions, maybe 100 million, I mean, who knows, we don't know what we're going to spend right now on a new high school, and that's going to be for a projected student population. Or are we just talking about another addition then at some point? You know, what is, if there's even a remote possibility of this happening, I think it's something we need to be aware of as a community now so that we can prepare accordingly. But I don't know if there's an easy answer to that because, like you both said, it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere this year, but is it something that could be happening 5 years from now, you think? And if so, you know, how do we handle that as a town?
My guess is what'll eventually happen, not necessarily this year, but you know, at some point, it usually takes about 3 years on average to pass a bill, and there's some bills that, you know, take many, many more years, especially when they are very, you know, controversial, is that there'll be some incentives for very small districts to regionalize. Incentives, right? But it needs to be the community choice, I believe, you know, strongly in that right, the communities have to decide, you know, and some have. I mean, if you look at Burlington, not too far away, right, they have a regional one and it works for them, but that's, you know, they're not being forced into it. So I think that's probably what they're gonna get to, but I don't see a forced regionalization. So, you know, assuming that you all, you know, think that things are pretty good as it is with Farmington as its own school district, and it's a great district and wonderful schools, and then I don't see any reason why it wouldn't remain like that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, based on past history, you know, in the state of Connecticut, I would be really surprised if that anything other than, as you point out, the very small towns who you know, just who have regionalized, you know, I would be surprised if it went any further than that. So I think it's going to be a conversation, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
So
really,
it's safe to assume FHS will stay FHS for the foreseeable future. As we're building this project, we don't have to assume anything else at this point. That's a safe assumption, you think?
That would be my assumption. Sure. I mean, it's up to you all more than, you know what I mean. In other words, like, I mean, in terms of, I don't sense that you all want to do anything different, right, with the structure of. I mean, because what I'm saying is it should be the community's decision, not the legislature's.
Right. And you're saying it won't. You don't think it would be mandated on.
Correct.
The town. The state's
Correct.
not going to tell us what to do.
Correct. I don't believe that. Yeah, that's right. Right.
Thanks.
My prediction. Yeah, of course.
I think one of the things, just quickly to follow up on Paul's, was that one of the things out there that I heard was that even though the mandate, so to speak, wouldn't happen, the idea that if you don't do certain things, funding won't come to certain places. So it's not actually saying you and Avon have to come together and have one high school.
Yeah.
But the idea that if you don't do this, you're not going to get these funds won't come to you in the long run. So it's in a roundabout way, the opportunity for continuing to get other funds isn't there if in fact you don't do what we expect you to do. So I guess that's and so I would hope and ask you to be cognizant of those kinds of things out there that will certainly not be in Farmington's best interest to be. And I think the thing we all concern ourselves about is our local control, and we feel we've done a good job, and we hope that is speaks for itself, and we'll continue to be able to do that. And but those other kinds of things that could come in through the back door are what I'm worried about too, that I've heard out there. So, but if you're both allowing us to, have the trust and belief in the community that we'll continue to do good things and not support the consolidation. And hopefully we do many more things together, which we're talking about all the time. The regional groups that I'm in, You know, we do all kinds of things. We have a dispatch with Burlington, you know what I mean?
Right.
We're always talking about how we can share services and share people and share things, so, and the school system is too, so.
And again, that's part of the conversation. I mean, you know, Farmington has done a great job with that, and other towns have as well, but we need to keep it going. So you know, keep looking for ways to share services and reduce expenses. And I think that's going to be the best part of this whole conversation is to kind of force towns to do that. And you know, I guess the corollary to that is if in the course of working with other towns, you know, the neighboring towns to Farmington, if there are impediments to your being able to share those services, let us know. I mean, if we need to tweak something in state law, whether it's on the education side or, you know, whatever, if we need to fix something because the law doesn't allow us to do that, well, let us know, and we can introduce a bill to fix that, so that you will be able to share services and not be, you know, hung up on some arcane, you know, statute that doesn't allow for it. So
we're doing that right now with the animal shelter in Burlington. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
You all. Yeah.
Well, that opens up the question to mandates. And we had a discussion the other day just about mandates for towns and things. And I actually went to the school system to look and see what they, you know, what the mandates, and there are over 380 mandates for their dollars, lots of dollars that affected that. One of the conversations was that maybe, and I'm sure that I don't know how many mandates for the town, or which I'd have to look into to see specifically, but as that comes up, what does it really mean to the town? And we were asked as towns to find that out. What do the different mandates actually cost us? Because it is dollars, and I know it is certainly with the school system as well. And one of the things I would ask is that as these situations arise, that there really is a need to look at what the old ones were. And if they're not effective anymore, then why aren't they? And I know for a fact there are a number of those in play that really don't affect things anymore, but they're on the books. So maybe as things continue to move forward, those things need to be looked at to say, okay, these really aren't effective anymore because it was 25 years ago, and we don't have to have you doing that paperwork anymore. So I would ask that efficiency maybe be, you know, be looked into. So
Great.
Fair enough.
thank you, CJ.
First, I'm really happy that we have our entire State House contingency here. So thank you both for coming out.
We're going to fix that very soon, CJ.
Couple of quick, just yes/no questions to start off, because I think I heard you both say these things right now, so these should be easy. Regionalization comes up, you will vote against it. Yes, no?
Let me say, I don't like the premise of yes/no questions, because regionalization, like, what does that mean? Like, does it mean, what a regionalization bill?
Mandatory regionalization.
Yeah, forcing the Farmington School District to merge. Of course not. Of course, I'm not going to vote for that. But there's period.
But
there are all sorts of, as we talked about, incentives for regionalization, et cetera.
No, I agree with Derek.
I mean,
it depends on what you're talking about. If the mandate comes down that you have to regionalize municipal dog pounds, I'm not going to vote no on that necessarily. Pardon me?
Mandatory regionalization of our schools.
I would not be in favor of
Okay,
that.
great. ECS funding. I think I heard that you would be against cuts in the ECS. Would you be against cuts in Farmington's ECS?
Certainly.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we've always fought for absolutely as much ECS funding as we can get.
Because the ECS, I mean, as we've had discussions, I think every year, we feel we're incredibly shortchanged. Hartford at 21 million, Burlington at 4 million, Hartford at 949. They both have higher household incomes than we do, and we still get shortchanged there. Okay, those are good. Those are the big questions. The other, bonding. Again, we're going to be running into this. I think everyone's already talked about it. We hope, and we're sure you'll be supporting us in whatever we need for the high schools. We're hoping we can get something when we're looking at this project, because regardless of what it is and where it is, there's going to be money that we need. Pilot funds. pilot funds are something that seem to every year start to disappear. And that's another situation where UConn, we felt we're underfunded in where we get our funds from UConn. Will you support, at the very least, holding the line on our pilot funds?
I will be advocating vociferously for as much funding as I can for Farmington.
Ditto. How's that?
Very good. Easy yes, no question. The only other one I'm going to toss out there that we haven't brought up tonight, and I just want to hear your thoughts on it, is legalized marijuana. Because that seems to be something that a lot of states look at for a great source of funding when you start to tax it, but some of the things that don't always get drilled down into is the added need for police enforcement, not just of the legalized marijuana or the stone driving or other issues involved in that. It is the increase in illegal marijuana that comes into every state that legalizes marijuana because it's cheaper. So
Yeah.
how do you all feel you'll address that, or what are your positions on legalized marijuana?
You want to go first or second? It doesn't matter to me.
Sure, I'll take a stab at it. First of all, as far as I'm concerned, although there is an opportunity for revenue there, I don't think that should be the driving force. There are public health issues, there are safety issues that are involved. I think it's not realistic. To look. Marijuana is here. People use it. Young people use it. Middle-aged people use it. Old people use it. So it's not realistic. I think you have to deny that. There has to be a way to if we're going to go that route of legalizing recreational marijuana, I think we have to do it in a way that protects the safety of our kids, that protects public safety in general. That protects public health. So I think we have to be really careful about how we deal with it. So I'm not going to give you a yes or no answer on that one, CJ.
Yes, no.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
I'm in I think, a similar position as Representative D'Amico. I've actually been thinking a lot about this issue and have been struggling with the issue because, one, first and foremost, I agree that, we should not be deciding this based on revenue. It's not the way we're going to balance our budget, and it's not, it's the revenue we should just take out of the equation. And it really is what's in the best interest, I think, of the public health. I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying that should be the question in terms of what's in the best interest of public health of our residents. And on one hand, we know that the states that have legalized, many of them have seen a decrease in abuse of opiates. We've seen 100 overdoses on the New Haven Green just this past year with marijuana being laced with K2 and fentanyl and things like this. So there is an argument I get on one side to say let's regulate it and make it safer, and it's already here to your point. But I'm not trying to equivocate. I'm being just sincere. I have 3 children. Essentially 2 teenagers, a 14-year-old, and another one who's next month is going to be 13. And I worry that if we do legalize that, will it make it more accessible, for them, and balancing the, how does it impact our kids? I am not on a committee that has heard that bill yet, so I have not, heard the public testimony yet in terms of public health officials and police officers, et cetera. So it's, I need to, I'm going to continue to dig in the next few months. But I think it's a tough issue, and I know it's what a lot of states are grappling with right now, is what's in the best interest of public health. So that's where I am. I wish I could say absolutely or absolutely not, but it's a tough issue for me.
Yes, no, because there's no way.
No, it's
your feelings. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, Bruce?
Last year, you guys were here and we talked about tolls, and just curious of where that is and where you guys stand on that now.
Let you take this one first, unless you want me to do it.
No, I think that, you know, both parties, everybody at the Capitol agrees that our transportation infrastructure is really in tatters, that it's ranked as one of the worst in the country. And so it's not only bad for the economy, but it's you know, public safety is jeopardized by it. So there's the kind of one side is, you know, our colleagues on the other side are saying let's bond it, essentially, right? So, and we've already talked about bonding, right, in terms of, you know, that, and how does that impact? I know it's technically a different fund, but the state only has so much money. So if we bond billions and billions of dollars to fix our transportation infrastructure, what does that do to the likelihood of, in terms of projects, right? Education projects that we care a lot about. So it is all connected. So that's one option, and we, residents of Connecticut, pay 100% of that, right? Or, right, the other option, and this is one, you know, that's, of course, you know, tolls that's being looked at, where New Jersey, Massachusetts, all the people who take our roads, you know, pound the pavement, the trucks, et cetera, right? And we pay for all of it. And, I mean, we pay higher property taxes. And there's a lot of things that, because we subsidize, right, their travel on our roads, we pay for. So I haven't seen the bill yet in terms of what the proposal is going to be. In terms of, is it just going to be trucks? You know, is it going to be where? You know, there's been a lot of talk of where would the tolls go, right? What would the ratio, right? All that, right? I have not seen the language in front of me. So I never, you know, and this is one of those things I've learned, you know, I mean, the devil's always in the details on this stuff. Is it going to be professional, or, you know, is it going to be, just imagine that there's not a toll, and, you know, by the exit that the Speaker of the House lives on, right? I mean, you know, it's just, this is, I'm not suggesting that our fair speaker would, you know, but it's just, I think we got to do a deep dive on it. But we have to find a way to fund our transportation infrastructure. For me, I will tell you, when this came up last year, I was opposed just categorically because the lockbox had not been passed by all of you and all of our families. So for me, that was had to happen before we even then have the conversation. So I know DOT's looking at it. There's some proposals. I'm open to it, but I want to see the details.
Well, I generally agree with what Derek just said. I certainly I need to see the details. We all need to see the details. And you know, Derek is right. I mean, we have severe transportation infrastructure needs in Connecticut. For 35 years, people have been driving on our roads from other states and not paying a nickel, right? I mean, we did away with tolls 35 years ago. And when you drive to Massachusetts, if you're on the Mass Pike, you pay a toll. When you drive to New York or New Jersey, you pay really stiff tolls depending on which road you're driving on. I mean, it's, and you know, so just from a fairness point of view, you have to look at this and say, hey, we're doing something wrong here. We need to fix this. There are a couple of things that we can do that I know are being looked at now. You know, as Derek started to talk about, or did talk about, you know, there are ways, you know, to do this so that the burden on the Connecticut drivers is lessened. You know, whether it's, you know, just make the truckers pay for it. That will cause some, you know, obviously acrimony with the truckers. You know, make the burden fall mostly on the out-of-state drivers. That's a possibility. You know, I'm told, and I'm not sure of the legalities of all this, but that's all going to get investigated and worked out. You know, give Connecticut drivers a rebate on their taxes at the end of the year. So if you pay $600 in tolls, but you get $500 back on a rebate, then that's not so bad. So, you know, there are ways to do this so that it's not, you know, an extreme burden on the drivers in Connecticut. And you know, as far as, you know, what I think is a real problem is there are all kinds of myths and all kinds of hysteria about this. Oh, there's going to be you know, there's going to be 88 toll gantries, and you know, I don't know how many toll gantries there are going to be, and anybody who tells you that they do, they're just making up a story. So I think everybody needs to just take a deep breath and let us investigate this and look at, you know, the best way to do it. But ultimately, overarching all of this is we have transportation needs. We have, you know, we need to fix the roads and we need to fix the bridges, and we have to do it somehow. And this is one potential way to do it. So to just, you know, to reject it out of hand, I don't think it is the right way at all. We need to look at it and do it in a way that's as fair as we can make it.
Do you think the level of severity of this, because when I read about car manufacturer now building all electric cars, and I think by 2020, I don't know if it was Volvo or another dealership, that's, you know, that's all they're going to be producing, and you know, people are not going to put gas in there, and that's one revenue that the state pays to repair our roads, and now we got all these cars, which is great for the environment, but we still got to repair the roads. Do you think with all these, the direction that the manufacturers or the dealerships are going in, do you think that this is going to get worse really fast?
Well, our transportation fund is, you know, in big trouble. And I do this thing at grocery stores where I stand out front, I do the card table and my, you know, sign, people come up, and I had some people who drive electric cars, to your point, and they said, you know what, we feel bad because we don't pay anything for the upkeep of the roads in the state of Connecticut. And I hadn't really thought of it like that, but to your point, you know, that's an issue. Cars are getting more and more fuel efficient, and then some are, you know, more and more of these companies, you hear their fleets are basically going to be devoted almost entirely to electric cars. So it's something that it's one of the revenue streams of several that are declining for the state. Casino revenue is another one because of more competition, et cetera. So there's a number that are concerning. That's one of them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Other thoughts?
I'll go just because
Go ahead.
I'm here and you're here, but I had many similar concerns that have already been brought up, the environmental ones. I thought Patty was probably more well-versed on those topics. The public health issue of vaping in our community. I have a teenager and two that will soon be teenagers, and I've just become more and more aware of it the past year. So I think the forums and the communities are great. We can work with the legislature to get those things, and you can hear kind of what's happening in our community. And I know we have people on our town staff that would facilitate that, and with the school district as well. I think that's really important that we get as much ahead of it as we can, even though we're a bit behind. So I support a lot of those measures that you're talking about. And then with legalization of marijuana, I was wondering if we're hearing anything about age restriction. If you're looking at going to 21 for vaping and smoking, I imagine those are two together that are being looked at.
Well, some people are suggesting 25 as an age for marijuana, simply as an acknowledgement that the brain is not, you know, fully developed until, you know, much beyond age 21. So they're suggesting age 25. I don't know how that's going to fly, but that's right. I assume that you've heard similar.
I heard
thing.
that. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the research backs that up. I know that can be probably a tough sell, but if not now, it would be hard to go to 25 if you come out of
Right,
21.
right, that's
true.
So now is the time to think of that. Those were the big ones for me. I mean, obviously are the issue with the high school and any ways that you can work with us to help us maximize not just reimbursement, but other funding streams, different approaches, like some sort of collaboration with other towns. I think that's, you know, any of the out-of-the-box thinking.
Don't forget, I'm a taxpayer in Farmington too, you know, so I'm very sensitive to this. So.
But thanks again.
Thank you.
Just a couple ending comments, I guess, unless anyone else has anything too, but the idea about you're talking about tolls with the lockbox, a number of the groups that I've been involved in, that was a big deal.
Right.
How can you assure us that that lockbox is locked? Because in the past, we have not always had that experience. So, and how does it impact, you know, it impacts the state. You talk about the ends of this, coming in and out, but all the towns, Mike, you said, you hear all these things. Well, we do hear a lot of things, and you don't know where that's going. So when you hear any kind of conversations about, 60 towns being affected or whatever, it's a concern. Certainly not one through Farmington, I would assume, but not 84, but anyway. But I would like to ask you that, and make a real point of saying that any of these things that you're looking at, how does it affect Farmington? As you go forward in your deliberations, in your budget, in the next few months, and the bills that you're passing, even something like minimum wage, how does it affect Farmington? If we have a minimum wage, how do you backfill or lay family leave time? How does it affect Farmington? And make sure that you're looking into those kinds of things. We had a big discussion at a regional meeting about all the towns and what does it really mean if you do have someone leave, we have to hire some, just be aware of what it means for different, I'm not saying the good or the bad, but what is the awareness and what happens in Farmington because of the certain bills that are passed. And we keep talking about the bonding, with the high school, but we have a lot of other things in Farmington. We have roads, bonding for roads. We have a center project that is really, we're getting underway, and we've had a lot of talk about that. Involves sidewalks, that involves the Parsons area, and we're trying to work with the state to do something with that, and what does it mean to clean up, the environmental piece there. There are a lot of things, and the possibilities of the growth there in the center, but a lot of that involves bonding, and so it's not just our high school. There are a lot of other pieces that we have in Farmington that have to be concerned, or that we have to be concerned about, and that should be under consideration when you're talking about all these dollars and the bills. So all the bills, even though many of them do impact us financially. So, and I would hope that Farmington is your interest when you're looking at that. Certainly the state, we have to help get the state out of the hole it's in, but Farmington is we've done a good job, and here over the years, for the last 50 years of our school system, our town. So, but please keep Farmington in your look. We certainly are concerned about other towns, and we want to do things together. But let's look at how does it impact, or how can we work together to do things that less impact us. So that's what we need to do. And the mandates is a big thing too. So
I know who put me there. I got elected by the people of Farmington, so that's always uppermost in my mind, and it has to be. It has to be.
So we thank you very much. Unless anybody has anything else, we really appreciate your time coming. And,
thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next presentation from our accountants. Accountant.
There's more behind me.
This is Ron from Blum Shapiro. He's going to help us understand our audit report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018. I provided you with another little presentation. You also received your audit books at home, but Ron did bring a little presentation he's going to go through tonight with some highlights of any important funds or anything like that. But overall, as always, our audit is clean, it's good, and no concerns really from that end. The finance department is doing a fine job as always.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me. Again, I'm Ron Nossick. I'm the engagement partner from Bloom Shapiro. There are actually about 200 people plus in that office, so I'm not alone. The actual audit document that, as I understand here, just having heard, was delivered to you, as you probably well know, is a very cumbersome document to get through. It's near impossible to give you a summary of that and have everybody flipping through that trying to find pages as to where I'm talking about. So that's the purpose of the slide deck that I did bring with me this evening. What we're going to go through are basically really two areas, and just make you aware of a third area. The most important facet, in my opinion, would be the engagement scope and reporting. So what were the results of the work that we performed on the audit? I'll go over some financial highlights, but they are going to be at about the 20 or 30,000 foot level, general in nature, just giving you a clear indication as to the financial position of the town as of June 30, 2018, but nothing very granular. I'd be more than happy to take any questions that you have, but I don't want to go line by line through that document.
Thank you.
And then I will just make you quickly aware of required auditor communications, which are actually set in a letter that came with that audit report to you. Those are required by the AICPA for us to communicate to you, those charged with governance. So those have taken place, but I just want to make you aware of them again due to the fact that they are required communications from professional standards perspective. So engagement scope and reporting results. So when in the state of Connecticut, any governmental audit that takes place is actually performed under 3 levels of standards. So there are generally accepted auditing standards. We also have to perform work under generally accepted governmental auditing standards. And then the town, because it receives a certain level of federal and state funding, we're required to perform an audit under uniform guidance, which was formerly Federal Single Audit Act and the Connecticut State Single Audit Act. Generally in speaking, the generally accepted auditing standards, so that first level is the most comprehensive level, and that is basically our reporting results are reflective in page 1 of the document that you receive in the audit report. And just for conversation's sake, while we do assist management in the preparation of those financial statements do belong to management. The only thing in that 170-odd page document that belongs to us is the report, our 3-page report, and that is it. So from the perspective of all of that scope, the results of the reporting, as was indicated earlier, under generally accepted auditing standards, we've issued an unmodified or clean audit opinion on the financial statements, which basically say that we are concluding they fairly represent the financial position and results of operations for the town for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2018. Under generally accepted governmental auditing standards, it's often referred to as Yellow Book. On top of just performing the audit, and actually most of this work takes place prior to the onset of final audit procedures, we're required to gain and document an understanding of internal controls over financial reporting. So what happens on a day-to-day basis in the finance office to allow them to get to year end and have financial information that is complete and meaningful and capable of being formulated into a financial statement that fairly represents. So we do a comprehensive study of that internal control system, understand it and document that study, and then we're also required to identify any compliance matters that, if a compliance violation were to occur, in our minds would deem to be material to the financial statements. So under that report, that is a report that actually is contained in your federal and state single audits, but it's referenced in that opinion that I talked to earlier under gas. We report, or would be required to report to you if there were any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control. There were none. We would be required to report to you any compliance violations that we encountered or we uncovered during the course of performing our procedures. There were none. So both in both of those cases, again, I don't particularly like using the term clean, but I'll use it because it's been brought forward already. Finally, under uniform guidance and state single audit, uniform guidance, Federal Single Audit Act, the first, as part of a risk assessment that we're required to perform, the first thing that we evaluate is whether the auditee, the client, is considered to be a low-risk or high-risk auditee. Here in the town of Farmington, you are considered to be a low-risk auditee. That is because you've gone 3 years without any findings relative to federal programs, and have filed federal single audit and have filed with the federal clearinghouse in a timely manner. So under those circumstances, we're required to identify type A programs, which are programs in excess of $750,000 and evaluate those for either high risk or low risk. And in the end, we have to make a selection as to what the type A programs are that we're going to test, and we have to cover 20% because you're a low risk auditee. It would be 40% if you were high risk. So the only federal program that was deemed a type A program in the past fiscal year was your special education cluster, IDEA. Total expenditures in that program were a little over $744,000. Total federal expenditures for the year were about $1.4 million. So while we were only required to obtain 20% coverage, we actually far exceeded that within that one program. Under state single audit's a little bit different structurally, where there is no low risk, high risk auditee designation. You have to get at least 50% coverage. There's a calculation as to what is deemed to be a major program. I think in the case of the town of Farmington, that threshold was about $470,000. So the programs that were selected for testing were 2 deep programs under Clean Water Fund grant and Clean Water Fund loan, and then Department of Education Open Choice program. And in the table there, you can see the expenditures relative to each of those programs, and then total state expenditures subject to state single audit. That was $24.7 million. So again, we're well beyond the 50% level here, quite frankly, just with that loan program that we tested. The one thing I'll say is, just to make clear to you, the reason I say state expenditures subject to state single audit, there are quite a few state grant programs that are exempt from single audit. And those, like ECS is one of them, which is a big program, but it's a formula-based grant. There's no compliance relative to it. It's based on prior year expenditures and whatever your colleagues that you were speaking to earlier formulate at the state level. Reporting results under uniform guidance, we're required to report to you any internal control matters that were significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. There were none, and we would be required to report to you any compliance violations relative to those major federal programs that we tested. There were none, and that holds true, that reporting both for federal single audit and state single audit. So there are the results of our reporting, which again, in my opinion, is the most significant thing that you're hiring an audit firm to do. So go over some financial highlights real quick. From a fund balance perspective, basically the equity position of the balance sheet under your governmental funds, and I'm on slide 8. I think you're all with me. You can see you have 2 major funds. That financial statement is predicated off major fund analysis, which is determined based on asset levels, liability levels, and so on within the balance sheet. And then funds that don't make that criteria are all rolled up and considered non-major. Most importantly that we'll talk about is the general fund, and you see within that column that fund balance as of the year end was $14,875,601. So that total fund balance in the general fund for the year increased a little over $2.2 million. The capital project fund is listed there as well. You see with a little over $3 million in fund balance. That fund balance increased by about $20 million during the year, primarily due to the bond and note proceeds that were recognized as other financing sources relative to that Clean Water Fund loan that I spoke of earlier that we tested in state single audit. And your non-major funds increased by about $1.6 million. That mostly had to do with just 2 funds that are in there. There's probably 20 funds or so that make up that column, but the Water Pollution Control Authority fund and your debt service fund. In the case of water pollution control, we just had operating revenues that outpaced your expenditures in that fund, and debt service had some transfers in that exceeded what the debt payments that were made out of that fund. So they generated somewhat of a surplus that of the $1.6 million that covered probably 80% of it or more. Next slide, just some general fund highlights. So general fund only, again, at the end of the fiscal year, there was $14.875 in fund balance, an increase of a little over $2.2 million for the year. Of that fund balance, $14,428,990 is unrestricted, representing about 14.2% of general fund expenditures, encumbrances, and other financing uses, and that's on a budgetary basis. In the financial document that contain, in the audit report, if you will, in the section of MD&A, the percentage that's presented in there is a little bit different, I believe, because Joe is using the GAAP expenditure. We're referring here to budget expenditure, but all in all, we're talking apples and apples. And then total fund balance against that same measurement would be about 14.6%. On a budgetary basis, actual revenue exceeded budgetary estimates for the year by a little over almost $1.5 million, and expenditures came in under planned budgetary levels by about $886,000, which generated a positive budgetary variance of $2.3+ million. And I'm just, again, as I spoke earlier, relative to this being 25,000 feet, I'm just giving you the budget scenario there that took place relative to total revenues and other financing sources, total expenditures, encumbrances, and other financing uses against the actual. So as you can see, the budget plan didn't change from what was originally adopted to what the final budget was. So while there were transfers made within expenditure categories through the year that I believe are authorized by the council, there was no additional appropriations that were made over the year. So you plan for a balanced budget that remained throughout the year, but in both cases you exceeded budgetary estimates. So you held your budget under control from the expenditure side and got in some additional revenues that perhaps well, obviously, were not anticipated. I think the biggest revenue category that occurred in were the state and federal grants that you received in excess of what was planned. I'm assuming because, given the last couple of years, how late the state budget has been coming, you made a wise decision not to plan on something that you weren't quite sure of. So I applaud you for that. Again, just staying on some general fund highlights. This is just simply, and I apologize, the slide I'm looking at doesn't have a format issue. I know yours does. The last couple of years kind of kick out of whack down at the bottom of that schedule. But the sole reason I'm providing this to you is just to allow you to see in the percentage of collections. So 1, 2, 3, the fourth column over, and then the last column on this, which goes into the 60-day period of collections, you can see the continuity under which you're collecting. When a rating agency looks at this schedule, what they're looking for, what they're evaluating it for is the willingness of your taxpayers to pay their taxes. And the level of that willingness gives some indication that there's a willingness to enter the debt market by your taxpayers if need be. So I would suggest, especially in that first column collected within the year, you go down 99.7, 99.7, 99.8, 99.6. You're the model of consistency there, with obviously a very, very high collection rate. The business type activities, I'll move pretty quickly through these, but as you can see, if you're looking just at the table, net position in the Westwood funds. The Westwoods Fund, which is the golf course, was $462,966 at year end. The Waste Collection Fund, net position $1,214,222. Those both saw increases, a minor increase in the Westwood Fund. And as I understand it, I've only been on board as your engagement partner for a couple of years, but as I understand it, looking back in history, that's a little bit uncommon. I guess that is usually generating a little bit of a deficit on a year-to-year basis. As a matter of fact, I think in the MD&A, Joe mentioned that it was only the third time in the last 13 years or so that it's turned to surplus. So that's a good thing to see. The collection fund did turn a surplus of about almost $208,000. So your total business activities were in the black, if you will, by $261,000. Your internal service fund did turn a deficit, but pretty insignificant relative to the level of transactions that take place in there. There is still a solid fund balance at our net position at year end of a little over $3.6 million. The claims liability as of June 30, 18 in that fund was a little over $1 million, but that would not detract from that net position because it's already that's already affected that net position because it was booked as a liability. This one I'll move through real quick. This is just a snapshot of the fixed assets for the year. The only thing I would highlight in here up towards the top, and these are for your governmental activities, up towards the top under your construction in progress line, you see there were additions this year of $22.1 million. I haven't looked back since we cleared review back in December, but memory serves, I think that had a lot to do with the clean water money and the ongoing project relative to that. Overall, in your governmental activities, your capital assets increased by $19,187,772 for the fiscal year, obviously predominantly because of that activity that's being funded by that clean water money. Business type activities, so we're on slide 13 at this point. There was very little activity going on in there. Some machinery and equipment was acquired, but that didn't even outpace the depreciation that was charged against the fixed assets. So that saw a little bit of a decline of $62,115 for the fiscal year. Next, on to probably the biggest heartache and headache throughout the state of Connecticut, actually throughout the country, long-term debt. And the reason I say heartache here is because I'm going to focus mostly on the OPEB and the pension liabilities. Relative to your other debt, so your general obligation bonds, you did have a small issuance during the year of $2.7 million. The ending balance in your GOBs is a little over $34 million. If you look at the amortization of that debt out over the next 5 years and going, that amortization is actually dropping. As a matter of fact, within 5 years, it goes from an annual, and this is principal only. Next year, you're paying $5.2 million on that debt from a principal perspective. In 5 years, it's down to 2.4. So I heard a lot of conversation in here earlier relative to a school building project that's I guess in the process of being teed up, as well as some other needs that exist here in town. The fact that schedule of planned debt payments is diminishing at such a significant level obviously positions you well to take on more debt, which obviously you're going to have to. I'm hoping for you that your reimbursement rate holds at least as to where it is, but as you know, we can all do math. That means 75% still of that debt is going to be in your lap having to be serviced. The clean water money, if you go down just under the GOB stuff, you'll see there was no beginning balance in that. You took in $333,679,274 then of new loans that were closed, if you will, and permanently funded. All of that money is amortized over 20 years at 2%. So the debt schedules on that are about $1.4 million annually. So it's pretty cheap debt, even in a low interest rate environment. It's still about as cheap as you can get out there in the marketplace. The bond, I'm sure you guys are up on this, but your bond rating remains a AAA. So getting into the debt market is I'm sure a non-issue here in town. I do just want to go over, these are the last two slides, and then I will be out of your hair. The net pension liability, there wasn't much of a change in that for the fiscal year. The total change in the liability was about $2.1 million. The net position of your pension trust fund did increase by about a little over $4 million. It did pretty well in the market. Had investment income of about $6.1 million. which kept pace at least, or pretty darn close with what the benefit payments that went out of the fund were. So then any contributions that came in were adding to that net position. So if you saw me on my phone, I neglected to do it before I came. I was just looking at the funded percentage, and that's around 75% funded, that pension plan. So that's in decent shape. Obviously, I'm sure you talk to your actuaries and financial advisors. It ideally could be better, but it's not bad. I think 16, 17 municipalities in Connecticut and more in Rhode Island, and I can tell you there's plenty out there that wish they were 75% funded. So that obviously is an issue, and as I said, throughout the country, something that we all want to stay on top of, because we saw what happened as we've seen at the state level when it's ignored, what happens down the road.
We made an effort a few years ago, and I don't remember when it was, Joe, but we made an effort with the council to actually take funds from our budget,
Yep.
and target those toward the pension fund, knowing full well that we needed to make it whole, or more closer to whole.
Exactly. Yeah, I think, don't quote me on this, but I think somewhere around 85% is really considered almost a fully funded plan, because it is all based on estimates, and the two largest estimates basically are the mortality tables and the discount rate. So if you have a reasonable discount rate, from what I understand, the mortality tables that are being used right now by actuaries, unfortunately for me, at least, with all the gray hair on my head and a lack of a lot of it, they seem to be perhaps a little more generous than what the reality is in the United States. So I don't wish for all of your pensioners to fall off of the roll, but the likelihood is things, as long as you keep funding, things probably are going to get better. Again, as one of your colleagues in here earlier said, don't quote me on that, or don't hold me to that. But so the OPEB plan, now first and foremost, the liability at June 30, 18 is almost $38 million, $37,868,806. Now this is due, the number changed quite significantly from what was being carried in the financial statements in the prior year. It's because of GASB Statement 75. Prior to that, GASB 45 and 47 dictated the liability and how it was calculated, and it basically was a funding-based liability, and now it is a true actuarial liability. The town of Farmington manages its OPEB liability on a pay-as-you-go basis, so there's no trust assets to reduce that actuarial liability. So in many cases, it's deemed a net OPEB liability. Here, it actually is a total OPEB liability because there's no assets to apply against that liability. What I've provided you here is simply the table going from July 7, what took place during the fiscal year relative to the actuarial and actual inputs and outputs within the context of that liability, getting you to the $37,868,806. The beginning liability was restated to that $37.152,511 number. Prior year was considered what was called the net OPEB obligation, was about $24 million. And then what I have given you out there are, I think they're pretty important and often get missed in the disclosure, and all of this is in your financial statements, but the sensitivity disclosures relative to discount rates. As I said earlier, in a pension environment, mortality tables and discount rate are probably the two biggest things. That and the benefit package that's being provided. In OPEB, it's quite the same in the benefit package. So what this gives you is just some feel for how big a swing 1 percentage point actually is relative to the discount rate on the investments, as well as the trend rate you're using relative to healthcare costs, whether what you anticipate the rise is going to be over in the future. So that's going to end my time with you. Again, the next slides are simply the required communications that have already been provided to you. And then finally, just some contact information to me and to the audit manager, who was out with strep throat, unfortunately, so wasn't able to be here this evening. But if you have any questions that didn't come out tonight, or once you get a chance to go through the audit document and perhaps have something more granular, we'd be more than happy to address them. From an efficiency perspective, it would be best to roll them through Joe and have Joe reach out to us. But if you do want to reach out to us directly, we're more than happy to take that call. Any questions?
I have one. Oh, go ahead.
Just going back to the pension, you were saying 85 is generally considered fully funded. What do you usually see an average for municipalities?
That's a difficult answer. It's not as bad as a yes/no answer, but it's a difficult answer, and it often is geographically based. So, to be honest with you, in Farmington and Avon, those plans tend to be pretty well funded. Fairfield County, those plans tend to be pretty well funded. I live in New London. I wish I could tell you New London's plan is pretty well funded, but it's not. So it really has more to do with the economics of the area, whether it's a distressed community or not. I hate to use it, but the affluence of the area just tends to play a very large role in how well funded the plans are. I will say I don't see many above the 80% level, and most that I see of the clients I deal with are usually in the 60 percentiles. At least that's where they are now. Some years ago they were a little bit higher, but when the market tanked, a lot of these tanked, and people got a little more realistic, the state included, with their discount rates. They were 8.5%, 9%, and they were realizing 2.5%. So something's going to give in that calculation.
That was a big, Nancy alluded to when we put a substantial amount of money into that fund. I was chairing the retirement committee at that point in time, or the pension fund, and we had to look at the assumptions. There were assumptions, they were assuming 8% return on our investments at that point, which was ridiculous.
Right.
We weren't seeing that. We weren't likely to see that anytime soon. So, the 75 is good. I'd frankly like to see a little better, but
yep.
I got everyone upset on the council last time when we did that, so
Other questions? Well, one that I always ask is page 9. We can reference it. We don't really have to go to the page, but it has to do with our fund balance and our AAA bonding.
Yep.
We have really significantly raised our fund balance in the last few years. We were below 12, and in the last couple of years have come up, and here we are at 14 plus. And I always ask the question, where is it that we should be? Where is it that's looked at to with the AAA bonding? When we were down at around the 10, 11, barely 12, it was everything else was good, all the other pieces. But our fund balance, we were always told, should be a little higher. Where are we? And we were told 12 to 15 was good last year. That's where we should strive, what we should strive for. So what's your thought about it today? Well,
so there are a multitude of factors that go into that, and every community can be different. And I will also couch it by saying it's probably a better question to ask your financial advisor than your auditor. But what the general consensus, the recommendations of GFOA, as well as a task group that was put together by GFOA, is basically works out to be about 16.6%. So it's 2 months operating budgetary expenditures, which is 16.667. So you're a little under that if you were going to follow that guidance. But that guidance is also very clear that it's a number that will vary based on community. So I don't know all of the other dynamics that the rating agencies looked at when you had your very last rating. The fact that it's going up, the fact that it's not volatile and bouncing all over the place, I know all of that provides a relatively high assurance to the rating agencies. I also know that I shouldn't say I know, they seem to be laying a lot of effect on the OPEB liabilities. Now, those have been out there. Everybody has known they've existed, actually have been disclosed from an actuarial perspective in your RSI since GASB 45 and 47, which is probably 9 years plus now. But seemingly a couple years ago when GASB 74 and 75 were teeing up, rating agencies started talking about that liability a lot more, as if it was never there and all of a sudden is going to hit the books. So I don't know what the end result of all that is going to be. As I said earlier, your plan is on a pay-as-you-go basis, so there's no trust, there's no assets that are out there designated solely for the purpose of paying those benefits out in perpetuity. Whether they look, when was the last rating that you went through?
I don't remember. The last rating, Joe, that we had for AAA? Was that
November of 2017.
Okay, so not that long ago, and again, they knew the liability at that point in time, so perhaps it's no effect whatsoever, as long as you remain stable in fund balance. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yep, have a nice evening.
Okay. Next on our agenda, any new items? We have none. At this time, I'd ask for public comment. If you have a public comment, please come up to the podium and state your name and address. Yes, sir.
It's Alan Kuykendall, 15 Whispering Mound Road, Unionville. In the discussion of tolls, something that did not come up but has been discussed here and there is the establishment of a commission to take care of the tolls, make decisions on whether or not there should be any, and where they should be collected, and how much the toll would be. And I would hope that our representatives, or that you might ask the representatives, to try to avoid that, because it gives them a chance, well, put it the other way. A commission deprives them of a chance to make clear-cut votes on all of these parameters. And it would be better if they did have a chance to vote. Thanks.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay. Reading of the minutes.
I move to approve January 8th, 2019 Town Council meeting minutes.
Second.
Any corrections, changes to the minutes? Yes.
One, so this is January 8th.
Yes.
Page 6, my name is spelled incorrectly. I'll put second N. On the top of the page, page 6.
Anything else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Okay, January 22nd.
I move to approve January 22nd special Town Council meeting minutes.
Second.
Any changes or corrections? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Okay, correspondence?
Sure. The first piece of correspondence that you have relates to the vaping and the tobacco use statewide that we did speak with the legislators about. This letter was part of a group effort as well from this Farmington Valley Collaborative, and we did send it off to our two legislators to urge them to look into our concerns with vaping, with overall tobacco use in our teens. So we made sure that they saw that concern twice. And then the second piece of information, correspondence, is a nice letter. Back in January, I don't know, you might have known that our town hall janitor, John O'Connor, retired with us after 40 years of service. We had a very nice celebration for him at Camp Happy Hill in mid-January, and he expresses his thanks to us and to the council for all the good things that he's received from the town of Farmington throughout his career and with his retirement. So that was very nice to see from John.
Thank you. Report of committees, UConn, no meeting right now. Land acquisition?
Land acquisition meets tomorrow at 5 p.m.
Okay. Green efforts?
Green efforts, we met last week. We are continuing to work on our waste reduction initiative, which I alluded to earlier when talking to the legislators. We have a newsletter going out, hopefully in March, to the town to advise them of ways to reduce their waste and what Green Efforts does, and also to update them on the new What's In, What's Out app for Recycle Connecticut that gives people more advice about what you can recycle and what you can't. And our Farmington Cleanup Day is April 27th. There is a heaviest haul competition. We would welcome businesses, community groups, residents to participate and compete for heaviest haul prizes. We do get gift cards from local restaurants and businesses to support that effort. And we're looking for more people to come out. Again, that's April 27th, all day, same day as the hazardous waste pickup in town. And the Green Efforts next meeting is March 5th at 6:30 here in Town Hall. And we welcome anyone who's interested to come and make comment.
Thank you. Farmington Village Center Committee.
Yeah, we didn't meet, we met with the committee didn't meet, but the landscape architect folks that we acquired was the BSC group. We took a tour of the Village Center City with our town historian to kind of point out some of our local history and key points in our community. So as they start coming up with a plan or recommendation to this committee, they'll have that with us. So
Thank you. The Auditor Ad Hoc Committee.
We received 4 responses to our RFP, and we are meeting tomorrow to review them together and proceed from there.
Thank you. Report of the Council Chair and Liaisons. Council Chair, I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who came out on the January 22nd for the Joint Board of Ed Town Council meeting that was specifically for the Farmington High School project. I'd also like to thank the 2 committees, the Survey Committee and the Financial and Facility Committee. We had members of the council, members of the community involved, and members of staff, and just to thank everybody for all the time and the hard work they put into those 2 committees, and also to thank everybody for the emails we've been receiving, so that we are aware of concerns and thoughts of the community. We really appreciate all of that, and as much as we can hear from the public, it's very important for us to hear those comments and concerns and opinions. And hopefully they'll keep coming, and we'll have more engagement as the process unfolds. We have had, the council had put together those committees, and so that because we were very concerned about the high school, as everyone knows, and that we are moving along now with that information, I wanted to let everybody know that Bruce and I have met with Kathy, and we've continued to talk about what our next steps are. You'll see tonight on our agenda that we are going to be addressing the statement of needs from the Board of Education. That is the first step in our through the rules of the council, and so that's something we're going to be doing tonight. From then, we will move forward, and Bruce and I have been talking with Kathy about what the next steps are as far as the charter is concerned, and we are talking about what we need to do and how we can, as soon as we think possible, bring things to the council, and talking about some of the things that we can do in a process we can streamline to get it here to the council to move it forward. Hopefully tonight, we approve the statement of needs, and then we move forward to appointing a building committee and putting together a charge. And that's something that the council has to discuss and put together. We're hoping to put all of those things together and have some possibilities for the council in the near future. We just want to make sure that everyone knows how important this committee is, this building committee that we're going to be forming, and how important it is to get everyone on board with what's necessary and needed at the high school. So we look forward to many other public meetings and hearing from the public at meetings, such as our council meetings, Board of Ed meetings, and meetings we will have specifically about the Farmington High School. With that said, I'll move on to the Board of Education liaison.
So you'll have to bear with me. There were 2 regular meetings, I believe, and 2 budget workshops since we last met. So I have some updates. So on January 14th, the Board of Education met and the state legislators were there. So overlap of conversation around ES funding, fairness, structure. Let's see, Representative Slapp, I believe, mentioned a proposed bill, possibility of a proposed bill for the governor to not cut ECS funding during the school year, which I think happened a couple years ago. So they are mindful of that and working to see that hopefully it doesn't get cut at all, but if it does, that it didn't happen during a school year. The vaping epidemic and possible initiatives to address, like we heard tonight, there was discussion about school construction issues and the difficulty of mandates on school districts, so very similar topics. The Board of Ed is looking at, I think they just approved, but they started talking about a change in their medication policy on January 14th, looking at having Narcan kits for opioid overdoses at all the school buildings in the nurse's office to start and going from there. So they're taking a look at that. That night was also the presentation of the capital funding requests. So in total, the Board of Education's capital request for 2019-2020 school year is at $2.8 million. That was approved by the Board of Ed at that meeting. Covers lots of areas, as we see from year to year: technology, security, the office relocation and configuration that we talked about last year. The security vestibule at East Farms is developing into a larger project, so that's incorporated into that request. Structural and architectural needs, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, code and safety, cafeteria equipment, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And there's an IAR cafeteria renovation addition proposal and a telephone system upgrade. And most of those are in response to the K-8 facility report that we've been calling the Fryer report. On January 28th, the board met at Noah Wallace School, and the assistant superintendent talked about looking at an update of the vision of the graduate for the district, and the director of special services gave an overview of her preliminary special services budget, and the assistant superintendent also gave a preliminary staffing budget. The retirements of Kurt Pandisco and the assistant principal at Farmington High School, and Bill Silva, the principal at Farmington High School, was announced at that meeting. There was an approval of the contract with the Farmington Public Schools Employees United Union. That's non-certified staff, clerical, and custodial staff. And plans were approved for the security vestibules at Union School, West District, Westwoods, and Irving Robbins schools. So things are moving along with those projects. And the Board of Education approved the statement of needs for the high school facility at that meeting. And the board held their budget workshops on Saturday, February 2nd, and Monday, February 4th. On Monday, February 4th, they voted unanimously to approve the 2019-2020 operating budget for the schools. That was voted on at a 3.02 increase, which was the same as was proposed by the superintendent. All the council members received a summary via email last week on that. just as far as composition of that increase, for salaries and benefits, that made up 82% of that increase. And other, which included special services, a new bus contract under transportation was 12% of the increase. And that's it. So more on that to come.
Thank you. Chamber of Commerce.
No report.
Economic Development.
The EDC hosted their quarterly business breakfast on January 23rd at the Farmington Club. We had a really good presentation from guest speaker John Traynor, Chief Investment Officer at People's United, sharing his thoughts and insights on the global economy, as well as our regional New England economy and Connecticut as a whole. The EDC met on February 6th and gave positive referral to the TPZ for Image First to add a 9,000 square foot metal building to their existing floor plan. Image First is located at 1838 New Britain Avenue, right across from Trump. And they process laundry for hospitals and other medical facilities.
Thank you. Farmington Historical District.
Nothing to report.
Housing Authority.
So the Housing Authority actually met tonight, right before this meeting, and their next meeting is April 10th at 6:15 at Maple Village. It's their annual meeting.
Human Relations.
So the Human Relations Commission has had 2 canceled meetings in the last couple of weeks due to weather. Their next meeting is March 27th at 6:30 p.m. at the Community Center.
Okay. Library Board.
Library Board met on January 16th, and the Farmington Library will be hosting the Challenge Cup, a mini golf tournament inside the library on February 22nd.
TPZ.
Nothing to report.
Unionville Historic District.
The Unionville Historic District met on February 7th. The commission will be hosting an educational seminar on March 4th at 7 p.m. in the Town Council chambers. This will be a historic home seminar and will be open to anyone in the public to attend, as well as people in the Farmington Historic District. And Alyssa from the Connecticut State Office of Historic Preservation will be presenting information to the public regarding historic homes, including tax credits that are available for rehabilitation work on those historic homes.
Okay. UVIA.
Nothing to report.
WPCA.
The construction ongoing, still looking good as far as schedule goes for the sewage treatment plant. There were previously some concerns with some of the pumps. They thought they were rectified. Some of those concerns have resurfaced, so I'll continue to keep everybody posted on that, but there currently is some inconsistencies with some of the pumps that we have. Otherwise, construction is ongoing and still ahead of schedule.
Great. Other liaisons? Report of the town manager.
Okay. The full report is in your packet. Today is kind of exciting. We have 2 presentations that go along with our town manager's report. Kat Krajewski in our office is going to present very briefly on 2 topic areas, those being our infrastructure report we've been working on and a communications report that is in line with some of the goals that the town manager has. So we'll start with Kat, and then we'll finish up the report.
Okay, so a draft version of an infrastructure report is in front of you at your seat. This report was created in response to Town Manager Goal number 6, which is to create an ad hoc committee to determine what a future infrastructure committee would focus on, including but not limited to sidewalks and facilities. In the adoption of the 2018-2020 Town of Farmington Strategic Plan, the Town Council placed an emphasis on infrastructure. The town does have studies, information, and long-term planning documents, but they have never been compiled in one place. This presentation provides an overview of Phase 1 of the infrastructure report and the work that has been completed to date. The infrastructure report is a planning document and a communication tool. While this document was not created by an architect, it is modeled after the school's Fryer report. The information was simplified so it's easy to understand and accessible to the public. The contents of this report illustrate a snapshot in time of all the 15 main municipal buildings. This report is a working document and will continue to be updated and developed at each department's annual capital budget meetings. Phase 1 of the report, which is again included in front of you, pertains to municipal buildings. It is anticipated that Phase 2 will include town roads, streetlights, town-maintained sidewalks, town bridges, and town parks. To create this report, exterior and interior items that we wanted to evaluate were identified. A survey was developed and sent to department heads to work with building maintenance for evaluation. For each item that was evaluated, a funding source was then identified, operating or capital budget. Items identified for funding through the capital budget were cross-referenced with the 7-year capital improvement plan and discussed with department heads at their capital meetings in September. Department heads were asked to rate exterior and interior items on the following scale. This is the same conditions assessment scale that is in the Fryer reports. The exterior items that were evaluated include windows and doors, roofs, facade siding or gutters, parking lots and sidewalks, and exterior lighting. Interior items that were evaluated include HVAC system, generator, electrical system, plumbing, lighting, fire alarm system, security system, telecommunications system, conveying system, and bathrooms. The 15 major municipal buildings that were included in the report include the Highway Garage, Parks Maintenance Building, East Farms Fire Department, Farmington Fire Station, the Live Fire Training Facility, Oakland Gardens Fire Station, Southwest Fire Station, Tunxus Hose Fire Station, the Police Department, Town Hall, Community Senior Center, Staples House, Stone House, the Youth Center, and Westwoods Clubhouse. A sample of all the pages, I'm just going to do the Police Department. This is on page 41 of your report, if you want to follow along. Each of the building profiles is modeled the same way. So for the Police Department, general information, where the building's located, area square footage, general information about the building. If it's a historic registered building, like Staples House is, that's included there. And there's also a very nice picture of each building. So then the exterior items, windows, doors, roofs, facade, siding, gutters, parking lots, sidewalks, and exterior lighting are all then evaluated based on that conditions assessment scale. And information is given including when the last repair or replacement was done, how replacements will be made, or when they will be made, the funding source, and if it's in the capital budget, the year and dollar value is then included as well. So for example, windows and doors in the police department are good. The date of last repair or replacement was 2002. They will be completed as needed, and they can be found in the operating budget. An example for the roof, it's rated as fair. It was done in 2002, which is when the building was actually built. Repairs are done as needed, like if there's a leak or any other issues, but a replacement would be done all at once. And this can be found in the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2022-2023 for $350,000. Some more examples, we move to interior items. Those are then evaluated using the same scale. For example, the HVAC system is rated as fair. System is repaired as needed. A maintenance agreement is in place for these ongoing needs. It would be done to be determined how it would be replaced, phased all at once or over a couple of years. It is in the capital improvement plan, and it's in fiscal year 2025-2026 for $125,000. Some other examples, telecommunications system is rated as good. Phones were replaced in 2017, but communication upgrades for the infrastructure would be done through the capital improvement plan. There is some funding available in 2019 through 2022 for a total of $385,000, and that's for the dispatch infrastructure. At the end of each section, there's also a capital improvement summary, which is a screenshot from the actual capital improvement plan. The funds that are cross-referenced in the capital budget with the facility report are highlighted as well. So the next steps would be to recreate this for phase 2. Town roads, streetlights, town maintained sidewalks, town bridges, and town parks. So the question that we have for the council today is, where do we go from here? We would like the town council to have consensus on the next steps for the infrastructure goal.
So this is, obviously a lot of work went into this document. As Kat said, it is in-house. It is not architecturally based. But, it's our first attempt to try to figure out, what are we going to do with this goal that you've set for us? Are you happy with this? Do you want us to continue with those other areas of town, the different types of infrastructure? Are we looking at creating a committee in the near future? Is this something that is going to be this year? Is it going to be next year? We need some guidance on where we go. So we're open to comments, questions, thoughts on this from the council.
I think one of the things that I just want to comment on, I think it's an amazing report. And when we were talking about these things at an earlier council meeting, I know one of the things Kathy mentioned was that the information was out there, but just not all in one place. And we talked about having it somewhere where we could have it as a reference. And I think this document is amazing to look at and really get an idea of what's going on. I think to look through it and really digest it is going to be something we need to do. But I think what Kathy would like to know, is it something that we need to have a committee on, or do you want them to just continue to follow through on the information they have right here by looking at this, using it with the budget? And this is, you're going to see 2 different documents tonight on 2 different pieces, infrastructure and the communication, on 2 of the different goals. So it's important that there's an idea of how to move forward from here with this report, what you think you might need. So thoughts from the council. Paul?
I really like this. This is a nice way to kind of holistically look at all of our infrastructure needs. In terms of, establishing a committee for it, I know we talked about an infrastructure committee, 7 months ago. I like the idea of doing it. I don't know if we have to do it now. I'm open to talk about doing it, now and next year. I don't know how soon we have to do it. I'm absolutely fine with, being clear, because obviously we're working off of goals. But I really like this table that you guys are making. I think it's a great way to holistically look at our town. And now between this and the Fryer report, we really have a good way to look at our ongoing needs, for our entire infrastructure.
Right, and it's a working document. So this is evaluated every year. Things may change, it'll grow and it'll move along, but it's also cross-referenced with the capital plan.
Right.
So it'll be kept up to date.
Right. I think that's great. I think this is a great way to I keep using the word holistic, but that's a great way to look at our town's needs overall. So I think it's good for the long-term plan. How soon we have to do it, I'm open to, this year, next year. But I think long-term, I think it'd be something that'd be, great to establish at some point in the near future.
Other comments, thoughts?
Well, yeah, I just want to say this is tremendous, the amount of detail that you guys have put in here. I'm curious, and I'm not sure if this makes sense to everyone else. I like the key that you have, this key. Is it possible, I know I can tell the colors, but is it possible to have some type of key on the page that would say, okay, I know it's good, but good means 7 to 10 years out?
Right, I was trying to add it to each page, but it was just getting a little busy. So what I'm thinking, and again, this is just a draft, but maybe on at least the department page, because each department there's more open space on this one that I could probably put a little key on. So at least it's closer as you're going through it.
And then the, I know that we keep on talking about this as a holistic report. Do we envision perhaps that we would see school buildings, maybe a subset of this, and maybe not so much the town manager's office owning it, but maybe an ask of the Board of Ed to do something similar? I know they have the K through 8 report, but that's going to get old as we start repairing things. It would be nice to have something to refer to so we can keep on top of those buildings as well. Has that been discussed?
I don't think that's been discussed yet. Obviously our first priority was to get something, like Nancy said, we do have all this information, we just don't have it in a nice book, if you will. And, this report is just the buildings, and there are other things that the committee, the goals had spoken to, sidewalks, other infrastructure. We haven't really tried to approach the board. I mean, I guess, if you were interested, it's something we could talk offline with. It's something we could talk at the CIP meeting about. They do have that report that they have done in the last couple of years. It has, $60 million worth of work in it. And they're clearly going to be chipping away at that. So it's not impossible, but it's just not something that we've looked at.
Go ahead, Patty.
I appreciate the amount of work that went into this, and I know we asked for it a lot during the last budget cycle, so I appreciate that you heard us and went through and actually created something that we can use. I think it's helpful. One of the comments I have, I don't know the feasibility of it, is some of the issues, for example, raised in the fire report are simply code compliance issues. Everything from ADA to electrical to all those, to building up, because you don't have to meet 1999 code if your building was made in 1980 until you start to renovate it. But I think something I would be curious to know is where, in terms of, I don't know if it's part of the rating structure, like how the good, excellent, good, fair, poor is set up, or if it's incorporated in the summary page for the building, just if there are code issues that need to be, that are part of a renovation. Because I do know one of the issues with, for example, the high school is that once you start a major renovation, you have to bring the whole building up to ADA code. So I'd be curious to know if there are those issues at any of these buildings.
I think, unfortunately, my building is the town hall, and there's definitely some compliance issues there. Infrastructure-wise, we're going to speak to it tonight about that bid with the town hall parking lot. We're going to, get ourselves up to code with ADA requirements with handicap parking is something that we absolutely need to do, and it's something that, a little short story, but I had a planner here the other day doing an oral panel for me for town planner, and he's in a wheelchair. And I've known him for almost 20 years. He's a great guy. We go, like I said, we go a long way back. But the first thing he said to me was, "Erica, this is a joke. Your handicap is a joke." But guess what? By the spring, it's going to be fixed. I have stuff in my capital plan for town hall, anything from simple door handles that we have knobs now, and we really should be having
levers.
And, do we have enough handicap toilets in this building? Things like that. Police department, Nancy's senior center, community center, those are built in now heading to 20 years, but they are definitely more in compliance. I think most of our public buildings are in compliance in a lot of ways. Like I said, some modifications here. So, yeah, there are code issues that we could highlight if that's something.
And I'm thinking it's beyond just ADA, but it's electrical, plumbing, because all of those codes have been updated over time. The other question I have, and it's mainly, I think, because it was so I'm drilling a little deeper, is I know last year when we were talking about, I think it was, I don't remember if it was on the capital side or operating fund side, but the roof for the overhang at the police station. So where would something like that be captured? Because I see roof says fair, so would that be the parking lot cover would be there, or would it be someplace else?
So I think that is in the capital plan,
Is it?
which, Joe, I don't have in front of me.
It isn't the capital, it's the impound lot?
It's the impound lot
Yeah.
roof.
So because that's not an existing structure, it wasn't included, but on the CIP summary that's included there, there is, the text at the bottom does say that that is in the capital. So we didn't include it in the actual facility because it's not an existing structure. But we made reference to it.
Other questions? CJ?
A couple of comments. First, thank you, this is great. Really, it comes out great. I think it's easy to read, it's easy to look at. I'm a little disappointed that 2 of the fire stations have fire alarm systems rated as poor, so I assume we'll address that during our budget season. And as far as the information, I mean, I think this is great, this type of information. I'm not a big fan of a standing building committee just because we don't always build buildings. We're not always doing new structures, new construction. But that's my personal opinion. I mean, we can talk about that another day. But I think this is great. This is going to be a big help when we're looking at our CIP. So, thank you.
And the piece that you did not do, that you referenced, that the next step would be to do this same kind of information, that.
Yes, we were hoping to do a similar, we're calling this phase 1. So this is just the 15 main municipal buildings. Phase 2, we would do a similar conditions assessment for the roads and the streetlights. And again, we have a lot of this information. It's just never been compiled in one document.
For instance, town roads, I mean, obviously we choose our town roads. You'll see in the budget, we're asking for another $2 million in bonding. We know, we have the assessment, the grading of those roads. It's just not in this format. You know, so it's a lot of taking a lot of that information. Our street lights, we just purchased them. We have a lot of data that goes along with that we can incorporate. The sidewalks is all on our GIS, system. Again, nothing is terribly difficult. It's just time consuming. The bridges and the parks. The parks are something that you'll start seeing on the capital plan a lot. Tungus Mead is in need of improvements. Things like that.
I mean, I'd like to suggest that we have them do phase 2 next. And then, but we, as a council, as we're talking through this, you each see little things that you think would help in the process of the documents. I think that's important for Kat to know, and Kathy, all to know, so that you can address those needs. But I'd like to suggest that we have them do phase 2. And I don't think we need to form the committee today, but you have to tell us that, have a consensus of whether you think it, because that's what Kathy wants to know. Are you ready to just continue this process? Or do you feel at this point you want an absolute, committee now? And I think it'd be a good idea to let them continue this process and present it to us again, the rest of it. And then think about what else we need to refine these kinds of reports. So, but I need to hear from
Do
you.
you want a motion or do we just want a recommendation?
I think just a recommendation is fine. If you give us the direction, we'll move along that way.
I'd be in favor of phase 2.
I
would be in favor of moving on to phase 2.
Okay,
And not creating committee today.
Correct.
Yet. Soon. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I think to Paul's comment, we don't know, we're not right now, but that doesn't mean we won't have one once all this information is together. We can see that in the future,
Yeah, no, and I'm open to going on to phase 2, and I would just add on, just keeping the discussion open for a possible committee down the road. We can discuss that in the future. It doesn't have to be right now in February 2019.
Yeah, I think this is great, and I'd like to see us continue with phase 2, and keep the discussion open for a committee further down the line once we have more information.
Yeah, I would have to say, this is great data, and I would like to see it continue. But the one question I forgot to ask, and I should ask, is this something that's going to be easy on the website so people in the community can go out there and, and look through it as well?
Exactly, yep. I think once it's finalized as the full infrastructure report, it will be on the website, easy to find, easy to reference. I'm also thinking we could hyperlink the capital improvement plan, so you just click on it and it brings you to it. Just make it easy for people to understand and read.
Sure. Again, a huge improvement in terms of making sure that it's transparent, communicating. I think that was one thing that we wanted to make sure is that we get information out there to the public. This is at least a step in the right direction, and I would like to see us move forward with phase 2.
So before I get into kind of my overall sense of it, but first of all, it's very impressive for me. It just puts things together in a very visual way, and I think taking this into the budget process is going to be so helpful. So for that alone, I think that's great. But it's good for us. It's probably going to be helpful for town hall staff down the road and the community. So having that out on the website, I think is a great idea. I'm curious how the process went in the different facilities with doing the evaluation. So I know this wasn't done by an architect or an engineer, and that's a bit of a difference between what we have for the school facilities. But how did that go? Because if I had to do that in a building where I worked, I'm not sure how that would go. So you had different department heads?
It was sent to the department heads who also work directly with the capital plan. So they've been forecasting these updates and these repairs and replacements for many years. They also consulted our building maintenance department, and they're the ones that actually do these repairs. So any questions that they had, they sent it to Dave Cassetta. He was able to answer them and help really evaluate and fill out the survey that we sent.
Okay, that's kind of the missing link for me. I thought there was probably someone like that. And then, so I'm not leaning very strongly towards a committee for this at this point. I think taking it into budget, as I said, is going to be really helpful. And moving on to phase 2, I think would only make this more helpful and have it apply to more things in town. So, thanks.
Patty? I have one other comment that I just thought of might also be useful. The number of people that use or work in the building, I imagine some of these have a significantly, like for example, Town Hall has a lot of people in it. I don't know how many people are in, I saw one, but the park, there was a highway and grounds garage kind of, so knowing, and if they're town staff, if it's a building that's attended by the public as well, would be useful. I agree, moving on to phase 2 is a good next step, and that's where we should go. I'm not feeling strongly on committee at this point in time. I'm open to it maybe in the future, but right now I think this gives us good information.
Okay, thank you. So we'll just make sure that that moves forward.
That's good direction. We'll keep working on it.
Okay. And if you think of anything else as you go through these, because we, once you really have a chance to go through them, please feel free to call Erica or, Kathy and let them know. Okay, yeah.
The next report that we're going to present for you is on goal 22. And again, it's the goal about communication and transparency. And we thought, again, a good idea would be to take a look at what we do, put it all together in a report so that you guys can have a comprehensive view of that. And Kat is going to help us with that again.
So as Erica just said, this is based off of Town Manager Goal number 22, which is to appoint a working group to determine what a future ad hoc committee to improve communication and transparency would focus on. In the adoption of the 2018-2020 Town of Farmington Strategic Plan, the Town Council placed an emphasis on improved communication and transparency. This presentation provides an overview of current communication initiatives, as well as examples of potential initiatives that were conceptualized by town staff. Examples of the current initiatives have been grouped into the following buckets: community outreach, embracing technology, and improved communication platform and tools. Some examples of community outreach that we're currently doing or have done recently is the FHS community survey that was sent out in October. This helped us understand the ways in which residents communicate. Our police department has been conducting neighborhood meetings. We had one in West District School about traffic issues. We had one in Talcott Notch about a particular neighborhood issue that they experienced. Committees have really been focusing on outreach meetings, so Farmington Village Center Committee, the FHS ad hoc committees, and the Farmington High School Building Committee had a big visioning session with over 100 people in attendance to kind of get the public informed, get them out and get some feedback from them. Economic Development Commission holds their Business Breakfast Series and Small Business Resource Series. Examples of embracing technology: we've recently began the live streaming of town council meetings. We have embedded the video on demand to our town website, and past meetings are now accessible on YouTube. We've upgraded technology in town hall, like this smart board over there. The online permit process has been moved to online, so you can apply for a building permit, a public event permit from your own home. Department information is now more accessible online. We have GIS mapping, assessor property search, and pay your tax bill online. Examples of improved communication platforms and tools. We've been utilizing features on the town website, including frequently asked questions and forms. Utilize existing social media platforms to spread information regarding meetings or hot topics. So we've been trying to post on existing social media accounts like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn to spread information. Economic Development has recently updated some marketing materials to illustrate to businesses how Farmington is a great place to live, work, play, and prosper. And these have recently been posted on their website. The Explore Farmington platform is actually being updated right now to be more user-friendly. And since November of 2017, when it launched, over 9,000 unique visitors have gone to the site to get information. The Economic Development Commission also sends out weekly emails. They have a weekly email about public events, and that is sent to 940 people with an average open rate of 35%, which is very high for a blast email. They also send out business newsletters every other month, and they have over 2,000, or approximately 2,000 contacts, with an average open rate of 28%. Community and Recreation sends out their own newsletters, and we're really striving to use documents as communication tools, like the facility report we just presented, FHS fact sheets, and the FHS survey itself. So here are just a few examples of potential next steps. Conduct focus groups or workshops to solicit feedback on how residents communicate. Research and analyze a new platform for emergency and communication notifications. What we use right now is Everbridge, and that is becoming a little outdated. Research and analyze a community engagement platform, which is a public participation website for town projects or initiatives. It includes surveys, documents, timelines, Q&A. It's all in one place. Prioritize information that needs to be more prominent on the website. And also archive newsletters, annual reports, and budget information rather than just having the previous year. We also thought to develop a template to evaluate the level of engagement required for each town project or initiative to ensure the appropriate level of communication is achieved. Link documents, reports, and presentations given to town council to use as communication tools. Explore different ways to disseminate information to the public, maybe not just text or documents, but videos, a podcast. People get information in different ways. And then simplify long and complicated documents for easy understanding. For example, you might not be able to see it, but in your packet's a better visual. The town budget is a confusing process. Here's an infographic that was created to quickly show what it takes to get the budget passed. People can access this on the website, digest the information, and maybe know when to show up for a meeting. So it consolidates all the information. We've come a long way in the last year, but there still are some obstacles: budget and staff support. So again, where do we go from here to achieve this goal? And looking for, again, town council feedback.
This is definitely something that was, we heard you when we created the goal. It was something I know that a lot of you are passionate about. So this is our first step to get us moving. So we'd love to hear your thoughts. Patty?
I appreciate the effort, and I'm a big fan of when there's a lot of examples of potential next steps, because it makes me think about where to go. And I do think some of these things are definitely easier than others. I know a lot of towns do have all of their annual meeting, all of their meeting minutes online. When I have to search for them, it's great. But if we do that, it has to be searchable, or in a way that is functional so people can actually see what's there otherwise. So that's what I think. Anything in terms of how we're communicating and providing more information, it needs to be done in a way that is functional and usable, as opposed to a data dump that you're then just sifting through more information. And I have done work for municipalities where I am sifting just through information, and I can see how frustrating it is for people who don't know what they're looking for to find what they need. And I do think that we do have a lot of information out there. It's a matter of getting it, as you mentioned, Kat, out there in a way that people get their information. It's not just Facebook, as the survey showed. 9% of people get their. I'm still fixated on this 9% number, because everyone I know is on Facebook, I thought. So I think it's important that we do evaluate what these steps are. One of the and you raise in here, one of the issues is staff support. And something I've been toying with I've been mulling over as part of even just the high school project, is I think there's information that needs to get out there. And I hear how busy everyone is in town hall. And it's good to be busy, but then I also wonder how we're going to get the information out there and make the changes that I think need to be made on a communications level. And something I am wondering is if there is room in the budget, or if there is a need to have a part-time person or someone out there who can devote more time to a marketing's the wrong word, a communications message of what's going on, and can help evaluate and assist with the research and the analysis that's in here. As a number of the steps, I think there is a lot of research and analysis of what the next best option is. And when I say part-time person, it's a consultant who could be brought in on an hourly basis to assist with those, just because I do hear that there's a lot of lack of staff.
Other thoughts?
A lot of this communication stuff, is this more focused on from the town manager's office or the town council, or do we envision incorporating some of the other areas like planning and zoning?
Oh, absolutely. And that's why we tried to get examples from other departments, economic development, the police department. It's really a town-wide.
Sure, okay.
I guess the question I'd have, which would be following up to Patty's, and you may not be able to answer it right now, but the potential next steps, there are quite a few of them as we see, but how do you foresee that moving forward? And with the staff you have, like you're saying, Pat, you're all busy, but this, you were able to get this done, which was, I think both reports are amazing. How would this happen next? I don't know, and maybe you don't know yet, but have some thoughts.
Clearly, if we could have everything we wanted, having a communications person would be awesome, right? That said, that's something I think that you're not going to see in our upcoming budget. We have not proposed that. We have no new people in our budget coming forward. Honestly, the target you gave us, we cannot afford a single new part-timer, full-timer, or anything. So again, it's just this idea of consistency, how do all these moving parts work, right? Today we're talking about a part-timer, but then at budget we know it's really hard to fund. It is a lot of work, and I don't want to sound like we're whining or anything, but the amount of time it takes just it took us over 40 minutes yesterday to make sure we got all of the information out about this meeting being changed.
Oh, wow.
You know, just from sending things out to this one, that one, the other one, it is a lot of work. And, you know, to get things on web pages, to keep web pages up to date, to keep platforms up to date. You know, Explore Farmington is something that, honestly, Rose, Anna, and Kat work on, and they do all the work to get everything out there. Originally, I think that platform was supposed to be a little bit more back and forth with the people out in the community, you know, but it ended up being on our lap. You know, some of the examples that you see in this document, you know, 20 years ago, 18 years ago when I started, we were totally in the dark ages in terms of technology. We had a website. One of the first things I was tasked to do was to revamp that website. We've gotten all this cool stuff. We still think it's cool, you know, the GIS, the online assessor's records, online tax, town clerk records, pay your bills online, the GIS, the vendors or the contractors that come in now and say they love our online permitting process, the vision software that we have. It's awesome, it's great, you know, but everything takes work. That getting that online program for permitting was a big push. It was a big task to get all that in there and to have it work and to flow throughout the departments. I'm kind of rambling, but what's next, I think it's really going to be at the pleasure of the council and what they see as the priority. And these are your goals. And if you come to us and say, you know what, we really want to focus on this kind of communication plan, you know, and we're willing to give you X amount of dollars for that, you know, we'd be happy for it. Would you if you charged us to do all these things without extra, you know, we'll get it done eventually. But, you know, it's just going to be phases, just like we're doing with the infrastructure report.
And to
I hope that
piggyback,
answers your question.
to piggyback on something Erica said too, getting the information out about yesterday's meeting, we did it on a lot of different platforms, but the important key is are people going on those platforms? Like, we sent an Everbridge notice, how many people are receiving that and actually getting that information? So that's an important thing, is making sure we're in the right spots, putting that information where people are actually going to see it.
So I guess, well, part of what comes to my mind right now is, does the council feel, there are a couple different things. A committee could be formed, if you want to form, to look into these next steps, or do you want Kathy and the team here to actually go through this and let us know what the cost might be or how they feel they could do it first? Or I'm open to, how do you think you want to direct the next steps? Or if you want them to prioritize the next steps and see what the cost might be?
Put together a plan?
Right.
Well, just to, and you took the words out, to me, I would like to see a plan. I mean, if there's a plan out there and, you know, to continue doing with the next steps, but in order to accomplish something in a certain time frame, you know, you guys may be coming to us saying, well, we can use, and I think Patty used a consultant.
Part-time or something. Yeah,
someone to come in to help us get over that hump. We need to hear that from you,
Okay.
even though we may be asking for this, but you guys know the capacity of your department and what you guys could do in order to accomplish this. And then based on the plan that you presented, I guess the council could determine if it's a priority or not.
Go ahead. Oh,
Can
sorry.
I add,
Patty,
I'm
sure.
going to piggyback on what Bruce in a plan. I agree that seeing a plan makes it easier for us to evaluate next steps. To the extent you were to come to town council and say this is a plan without a staff person, or without a part-timer, or without adding anything, I'd be curious to know what a plan looks like if you do add someone at some period. So a balance, so that way we have an idea of, okay, if we go this way, this is what the options are, and if we go this way, these are the benefits. I'd like to have, as part of a plan, options, not just a straight-up proposal.
Other thoughts?
Madam Chair?
Sure.
Just, I think obviously we're very focused on the high school as far as And so I'm seeing how these next steps could really, if we don't jump on this and get ahead and utilize the technology and figure out where people are, like Kat said, and I think we've got some good information from the survey to build on. You know, and I'm not sure exactly what other towns have done. I know some architectural firms, when we get to that phase, if we get to that phase, we'll do some of that. But I think last time what we learned is that wasn't enough. It really needs to come from the town earlier rather than later. And any other initiative down the road, whether it's infrastructure or something else that the town is dealing with, this is crucial. And I'm just picking up on the urgency with the Farmington High School project, because when I read these goals, I see them all pertaining to success in the high school project and getting the community support, because communication is key to getting that support. So I would just, encourage us to look at figuring out how to move
Beth,
forward.
I think a couple things I'd say. One, we did at least start, we have, if you look at our website now, there's some key links or
I'll pull it
hot
up.
topics. Can you do it?
Yeah.
I think I saw what you're going to look at.
Yeah, we did.
I went looking for something and I went, oh.
Yeah, we dumped somebody and put the high school there instead. But in the very least now, it is on our front page.
It's moving a little slow.
Yeah, so now on our popular links, the second one down is we still want people to pay their taxes, and then we want them to learn about the high school. And then it's also on our spotlight, and it'll remain on our spotlight.
And even there, it's streamlining all the information so it's in one place. And it's both committees' work, the recent committees, what they've done, town council actions to date, and then the previous building committee link as well.
So we have that, if anything we learned, I think, in our survey, Beth, is that maybe some of this fancy stuff is not key, right? We, like you said, 9% Facebook. Newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
One pagers. Our consultant recommended that we do very succinct couple point things. Pay a little extra for the glossy paper. I don't know. We learn that people read the stuff that comes from us. Shockingly, we were very pleasantly surprised. And maybe it's just some postage that we need to make sure we have enough of in different,
Making
something
things
like
look
that.
like this.
And do you just send out some placards? Do we make, I don't know, X thousand placards and put those in the mail? Do we make sure that we get articles in the Valley Press and the Hartford Courant? Because that was the second most way that people get information, good old fashioned print. Do we ask for something like that to be an insert in the Valley Press? There's a lot of, what I'm going to go back to is old-fashioned low-tech stuff that I think could work too. So there's a lot of options.
Well, even infographics, like that's just one example of something that can be done. No one is going to read the charter and find out what has to be done for the budget. People aren't going to go through every line of the minutes to see what happens, and they'll read that because it's clear. It's 5 or 6 big ticket items that they're able to understand and read quickly, because no one wants to sit there and read paragraph after paragraph.
And it's just to the point.
Exactly.
What are the dates, times?
We know everyone's time is less and less, and our attention span, let's face it. So something like this, as much as we can produce things looking in that format, will go a long way. Thank you, this was helpful.
So our next step then, our consensus, if I can repeat it back and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we're going to sort of try to do an in-house plan of what these things would be, what their priority would be, maybe cost, what it looks like, how much can you get done with current staffing, how much can you get done with a little extra, and report back to you on that. Okay?
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Paul?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good with that. Just to go back to the last presentation we were doing, do you feel the same bottleneck with the process you're doing now and keeping this report as a live, up-to-date report? Would there be any value in looking at, the upsides and downsides to some central figure, whether it's a part-time consultant or someone like that, assisting in that process? Or do you guys feel once this is done, keeping it up to date is going to be relatively straightforward.
I think it would be, again, if all the world was to our, at our hands, we would definitely take someone to help us, right? But, I think it becomes an iterative process through the budget process every year. We generally start our budget process in December. If we need to move it to November to, update this report, we can do that. So I think we can make it work. The hardest part was getting it together for the first time.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kat.
Thank you very much for these reports.
Oh, and the rest of the report, there is more. There is more. Let me get back to it. As you know, we were unsuccessful in obtaining a Brownfields grant from DECD, but recently, about a month ago, Kathy and the Economic Development Director did meet with the Deputy Commissioner of DECD, Dave Corris, and he had, basically there just wasn't enough funds to go, sufficiently fund all the applications that they received, and unfortunately we did not receive that award, but he's going to be able to help us as we move forward and work with the issues at the Parsons property. So we're hopeful that this contact that we've made is going to really be able to help us move that project forward.
Would it be resubmitting for grants, or do we not know that yet?
I think I personally don't know if Brownfields have a yearly grant program, but I hope they do. And I hope that we would do that again. Obviously,
There's typically a yearly cycle. It
Yeah.
varies based on the legislature.
See
And
how the diet goes.
Right,
But,
yes, and EPA funding, because a lot of the brownfield grant money comes from EPA.
Yeah. So there is definitely hope there.
Okay. Great.
Good news for the fire department. Chief Higley is in the audience, but we were able to get more cameras, 2 thermal imaging cameras from Community Chest. They gave us $66.50 for those cameras. Those are very important pieces of equipment to our firefighters. They just help in so many different ways to find fire, to find people, and just to continue our important work in the fire department. So we thank the Community Chest a lot for that, and we hope to actually maybe receive a little bit more money from them in the future for the same thing. There is the budget schedule that we have going forward, starting in 2 weeks' time for the budget, capital budget, and then our regular March schedule with our public hearing on the town manager's budget on the 12th, and then our week of budget hearings, and then our town meetings. One note, if you would remember, that council's proposed budget is going to be at a council meeting on a Monday, April 1. So that we have already made that schedule, but it is a Monday that time. So we will be together a lot in the next few weeks. And another good plug for our public safety people, police and fire, is that we have renewed our Heart Safe designation. It's a great way to show the community that we truly care about the chain of survival, and that we are working towards, saving every life that we possibly can. One thing I would highlight for this issue is that the fire department has been training people in CPR, and last year we were able to train 87 residents in CPR, and that's a great public outreach program there, and that we have over 50 AEDs throughout the community in both town buildings and private businesses. So that helps us maintain that Heart Safe community designation.
Do we know when that's going to be this year? Not yet. You'll get it to when the training courses are going to be. Do you put that out on the website?
I think so.
It's not published.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
They are on there.
I think I saw it maybe on the fire department's Facebook page.
Yeah.
And they're on Explore Farmington.
I'm sorry?
They're on Explore Farmington.
Okay. Great.
So that's the town manager's report.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to accept?
So move.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. Appointments tonight.
Yes, Madam Chair. Item L2, I move that Jay Tulin be appointed to the Conservation Commission and Inland Wetland Commission as an alternate for a balance of 4 years, beginning immediately and ending September 30th of 2019.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Bruce?
Madam Chair, L3, I move that Amy Suffredini be appointed to the Economic Development Commission for a balance of 2-year term beginning immediately and ending September 30th.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Madam Chair, L4, I move that Elizabeth Jean Arles be appointed to the Plainville Area Cable TV Advisory Council for a balance of a 2-year term beginning immediately and ending June 30th of 2020.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Madam Chair, L8, I move that Barbara Marsh be appointed to the Unionville Historic District and Property Commission as an alternate member for the balance of 3-year term beginning immediately and ending September 30th of 2021.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Madam Chair, L9, I move that Jennifer Wynn be appointed to the Water Pollution Control Authority for the balance of 5-year term beginning immediately and ending September 30th of 2023.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Madam Chair, I move that Tony Berlandi be appointed as Justice of the Peace for the balance of a 4-year term beginning immediately and ending January 4th, 2021.
What item is that? I'm sorry.
13.
L13.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Tony, okay. Okay. Old business, to approve the blighted list. Bruce?
I move to approve the following 2019 blighted building lists: 14 Blue Ridge Drive, 23 Lakeview Drive, and 56 Lake Garda Drive.
Second.
All right, there's a lot of data in your packet for this item. You saw the proposed blighted building list at our last meeting. Per Chapter 88, you received that list. You review it, and you must take action. You should take action on it within 75 days from January 8th. If you take no action, it actually becomes approved. There are 3 buildings, homes, or properties on this list. 14 Blue Ridge Drive has not been on our list officially. The gentleman has been here several times, and council decided to postpone any designation as a blighted building list property, though really only some cleanup has completed, and it's really, we've given him second and third chances, and it's looking like it's, you know, the work promised is not coming through. 24 Lakeshore Drive, as you are probably aware, is our long-standing case that is in court, and we do recommend keeping it on the list per our attorneys for our strategy and stuff. And 56 Lake Garda Drive is a new property to the list. It is an interesting property because it is going through foreclosure, which has its own issues that go along with that. But we are recommending that it go on the list right now.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. N1.
I move to amend Chapter 118 Housing Standards for the Farmington Town Code.
Second.
And we had the public hearing, and this is being moved forward to a vote now. Are there any?
To amend that motion to amend the Chapter 118 for the attached, so that it's attached to something.
Oh, okay.
It's a friendly amendment.
Yep, I'm
Per
gonna,
the attached red line version?
yes, per the attached red line version, which we all have in our packet
Yep.
here.
Second.
Okay. Again, we had our public hearing just moments ago, looking at updating the code and adding information about the vegetation and overgrowth.
Questions?
Just a comment, your moments are a lot longer than mine.
Well, I'm trying not to look at the clock.
Madam Chair, I have two questions, and I appreciate that one of them was actually mentioned in the slide presentation tonight, but the reduction for hot water heat from 120 to 115, and it's been a while since I've looked at this, and I've now said this a couple of times to different people who've asked me questions, and I could have looked it up. But the last time I was advised was for sanitary dishwashing purposes, it should be 120. So is that changed?
That was for the Farmington Valley Health District as far as the water temperature.
So the health district said 115?
Cooking for maybe like a commercial cooking,
Yeah.
could be 120.
Okay.
Yeah, this is residential.
But the health district says 115? Okay. My other question is for notice of hearing. I do know that the Administrative Procedures Act just requires notice be reasonable, and I'm just bringing it up as to whether or not 10 days is reasonable notice in light of potential vacation schedules, illness, and whatnot. So, because how it was amended is...
From 20 to 10.
Yeah, from 20 to 10 days. Thank you.
It is what they use now for evictions and other types of notices that we get.
I noticed, I can't remember, I think it was in the slide presentation. I didn't notice it here, but I think it said something to the effect of unless special request is made. So if you were to get a request from someone on day 9, I'm on vacation, I can look at this when I get, would that be?
You take that into consideration. That would be something that you would do.
And that was also for depending on the status of the individual, if he's a native person, if he's involved, or that was for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. N2.
I move to disband the Farmington High School Survey Ad Hoc Committee and Facility and Finance Ad Hoc Committee and thank them for their hard work.
Second.
Any questions? I'd like to ask that we send a letter of thanks to each member of the committee. Please, on behalf of the town council.
Easily done.
Any questions or? Okay. All righty, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? N3.
I move to approve the attached Board of Education Statement of Needs for the Farmington High School renovation project.
Second.
We did receive this revised statement of needs from the Board of Education. They approved at their January 28th meeting. They are required to submit that to you per Chapter 53, and then, you must, before anything else happens with a building project, you must accept this statement of needs, and then we can move forward with other requirements thereafter. So, there's not a lot of change between this version and the 2015 version, so it is very similar to that one. So I don't know what the discussion you would like to have on it at this time, if any.
Are there comments to Patty?
I just want to comment that I am in support of the statement of needs. I think it's important that we continue to move this forward down the process. It's clear that the high school does have significant needs that need to be addressed, and I reiterate the Board of Ed's request that the town council consider the statement of needs as soon as possible.
Other comments? Okay. All right, I just would like to add and say thank you to the Board of Ed and for the superintendent for getting this on the agenda and moving it forward to us. So I think we can move forward with this tonight. So with that, I'd like a vote for N3, please.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Great. N4.
I move to award the bid number 280, the acquisition of one new unused pumper engine to Firematic Supply Company, Inc. of Rocky Hill, Connecticut, acting as agent for Peace Manufacturer, Inc. of Appleton, Wisconsin, at the contract price of $678,178.
Second.
Erica.
Hi, thank you. This is our engine that was in the budget last year. We've gone out to bid. We received bids back. You'll see in the note that it is in excess of the $650 that was appropriated last year, but we are confident that we'll be able to meet the requirements of the price because Pierce has had several incentives like, prompt award contracts and down payments and such that will bring down the price, and we are confident that we're going to be able to meet that price. This is a good vehicle. It's something that the town has spec'd out, and it's consistent with mostly all our other vehicles, and it will be exactly the same engine that is at Southwest. So, we're looking for support in this motion.
Questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? N5.
I move to award bid number 283, Town Hall Parking Lot Reconstruction Project to Clover Construction Company of Bristol, Connecticut, at the contract cost of $368,785.
Second.
Erica.
So this is for a piece of our parking lot project that you see is underway. It's for granite curbing, concrete sidewalks, and drainage in our parking lot. The bidder, Clover Construction, was the low bid, and we received in our background check extremely good references about the contractor, so we're encouraged by that. And overall, as you know, this project is going to be working on things like ADA compliance with parking spots that I mentioned earlier, increasing our parking lot spaces, better circulation. We're going to be able to do things like some low-impact development techniques to help with our stormwater permits, things that we need to do. And really, we're going to clean up this parking lot, which is much needed. So.
Any questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
It's, Erica, you said it's for a portion of the parking lot work. So in terms of the budget amount, does this $368,000 roughly correspond with the portion in terms of what's budgeted?
Our estimates out of engineering were good. They were only off about $10,000, which we feel is a win. Matt Walsh was very pleased with himself for his estimating skills on this one. The overall project for this, the cost for this project is about $636,000. We have to do paving. Town staff has been doing some of the site work over the last 6 or 8 months. We were very lucky to get through most of January and still able to do some site work. We do have the funding in the capital plan. This is an item that I have been saving quite some time for. So we do have enough money for about a little over $600,000.
Thank you.
Other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? N6.
I move to schedule the special town council meeting, if needed, on Friday, April 26, 2019, in the Town Hall Council Chambers at 4 p.m. to approve the Town Council 2019-2020 second recommended budget.
Second.
Again, this is crossing our fingers. We don't need this. This is only if the budget fails on the 25th of April.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? N7.
I move to set the public hearing on March 12, 2019 at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers on the Town Manager's 2019-2020 recommended budget.
Second.
This same schedule that you saw in the manager's report. Those, normally we do try to finish on that Saturday, the 16th, but please don't make any travel plans for the 18th or 19th, because those are days that we might need. So that's our normal budget March schedule.
Okay, and I would suggest that you allow Saturday afternoon to be
Yeah.
available as well. Maybe we'll order lunch early.
I don't know that we've ever gone to 12, so
Right.
yeah.
We did last year.
Did we?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
No, we went to 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was just,
Yeah.
yeah. So, okay. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, and 8.
I move to correct the ending date of Richard Berlandy term as an alternate for the Conservation and Inland Wetland Commission to September 30th of 2021.
Second.
Again, last month, when we did this appointment, there was a mistake on the ending date, and this agenda item simply changes that ending date from 19 to 21.
Questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Okay, and 9.
I move to approve the following property tax refund totaling $9,348.03.
Second.
This is our standard tax refund list. You can see these are all assessor adjustments from, and this comes from our tax collector.
Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Thank you. Okay. Bruce?
I move to executive session to discuss matters concerning a sale or acquisition of a real estate property. Members in attendance of the executive sessions will be limited to the members of the town council and town manager. Oh, assistant town manager, sorry.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Okay.